Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
An amazing event happened on planet Earth in the beautiful city of Beijing, China. The cosmic ray technology was shown for the first time to the public by the financial arm of Keshe Foundation, the American Mark Ray Corporation, which is traded on the US stock exchange. Mr. Keshe himself went to China to show creation of materials from the magnetic fields by using obsolete technology, or what we call rotating guns reactors with electric motors. He's using these old reactors as a starting point for humanity to slowly accept the evolution of science and technology. For 3 days straight, the reactors were run and shown live on Zoom so that anybody from around the world who wanted to could come in and see. Black particles like dust start appearing on the white paper sheets around the reactors. These particles are being created through the reactors and the fields of the universe and the inertia of our planet. They are not coming from the room. There were 4 sets of pairs of reactors with red and green gases spinning in them. We were told they were not CH3 and CuO, but something else. They were set up in a star formation on tables inside the front windows of the Intercontinental Hotel. Anybody passed on the street could see them. White papers and spoons were spread around the reactors to catch the materials being formed from the fields. Some knowledge seekers were able to capture on video when black specks suddenly appeared on the paper, like out of thin air. It was very interesting to witness when energy first appears in the matter state. As time went on and the fields built up and changed strength, the specks formed into bigger pieces and some elongated, and some changed color into gold. This is the first time the public has been able to freely witness the creation of matter from energy. At the end of 3 days, Mr. Keshe collected more particles and showed everyone attending. An interesting thing occurred. When he touched the black dust on the paper with his finger, it turned gold. He said it interacted with the fields of the inertia of the earth through his finger. This phenomenon was written about in ancient times when the Greek god Midas touched things and it was said they turned to gold. What we witness here is how everything in the universe is created, from ourselves to the planets and even cancer.
And welcome each and all to the Keshe American Knowledge Team. It is July 26, 2026. I'm your host, Mark Anderson, and along with each and every one of the participants, thank you, Gail, for co-hosting, but actually we're all hosts and co-hosts if we look at it. just like I think we're all ambassadors. That was a new feature on the game that's been added. In a way, we're sort of all unofficial ambassadors of this new science, this new ethos, and this new language being introduced to humanity. So I feel proud and humbled at the same time because I don't understand it. It seems like the AI understands the knowledge better than I do in so many ways, or at least is able to reiterate it back as in very concisely as well. So privileged, proud to be here. I hope you are feeling the same way. This is a gift to humanity. It won't happen in one generation, but step by step, little by little, collectively, collaboratively, we're all trying to move in that direction. So we appreciate your presence. Thank you for being here. And obviously, we all have a much larger role to play, not only on the planet, but I think across the universe. I mean, those who are interested in spreading and understanding this technology in a way, and a lot of it relates to understanding more about ourselves. We're always looking on the outside. Now the teachings seem to be going that you are becoming that MagRav reactor and learning how to manipulate it and use it and interact with other fields or entities and so on and so forth. So it's a marvelous unveiling of universal knowledge. We're privileged again to have Mr. Keshe here, not only teaching humanity, but teaching across the universe. And I think this will be the mission in the future as we export this knowledge, catalog it here, and then share it across the universe. Because as we understand, the many in the universe don't have some of the similar experiences that we've had. And now, of course, the transmutation is being added into this whole understanding. So thank you all again for being here. We'll try to open a little bit more of the 652nd Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Again, Mr. Keshe goes from A to Z, but Ed has provided a number of videos and, of course, a summary of the 652, which we'll listen to, and an interaction between two AIs discussing the 652. And when you hear the summary, you'll know that we sort of have to fold up our conventional books and open ourselves up to a new universal understanding about ourselves in the process of creation. Of course, the video you saw in the beginning, Mr. Keshe making gold with an obsolete sort of reactor. Now I don't think there's any motors, and there probably wasn't at that time, but to show the public the actual creation of materials out of thin air, or interaction of fields would more likely be appropriate. But it does look like it's out of thin air. And of course, it was a very prestigious location, the Intercontinental Hotel in Beijing, where President Xi and other leaders hold their, I guess it's one of the 5-star or above hotels. And this was the first time a demonstration has ever appeared in the lobby of that particular hotel in Beijing. So it was approved by military and other people in China. And again, this is something showing the creation of gold. Our Keshe coin is backed by gold. It's not that we have warehouses of it. But it'll be mined as needed, just showing that that can be done, but also the process of creation and sort of putting another pin in the bubble of the Big Bang theory in a way of how materials are created out of fields rather than from the top down, from the bottom up. And again, this could be copper, this could be cotton, it could be anything you like. And so we'll include this video in the chat for you to share and study. But this is all part of the Keshe coin as well, which we'll go into. But before we go any further, as we usually do, let's all get on the same page, just reconfirm our ethos. Remember, we're introducing a new science, plasma science, a new ethos where the stronger feeds the weaker, and a new language, the language of cooperation and collaboration, as we find in the universe, apparently. This is why we don't see any sort of wars or fighting going on, because they're able to create what they need out of interaction of gravitational magnetic fields, which we're just stunned to even see it, never mind thinking it could be done. But there is a knowledge and an understanding, which apparently is deeper than most knowledge seekers have. using the cosmic ray technology. The Mark Ray Corporation is the home of cosmic ray technology, markray.com, but I found that this was forbidden. Something happened to the link on the Mark Ray as well as the Keshe Foundation store, so I won't be able to show you anything in there today. I don't know if it's my system or something is being redone, revitalized, but that was the message I got, 403 forbidden. But this is our World Peace Treaty, and this is part of obtaining the coin. I think, Mr. Keshe said, you'll have to sign this peace treaty every year if you want your coin allocation. And if we go to the constitution of the Keshe coin, which has already been pre-written, if you go to the final pages of it, and I'm not sure where I got this and I don't have a link, you can see that the World Peace Treaty is at the end of the Keshe Foundation coin constitution. And I think Mr. Keshe said that you'll have to sort of re-up every year and probably re-up on the Keshe Foundation joining the club for €1 or more per year as you choose. But this is the coin constitution. And there's a number of things, and I'm sure this has already been very studied and rewritten and written forward and backward again. And this is part of what they're calling the Keshe coin constitution. And again, we're just trying to put this bigger picture together. But let's go back to our World Peace Treaty. This is a document I believe Mr. Keshe introduced, asking the nations and individual citizens to pledge their nations to peace, asking world leaders and asking us to start to become more peaceful in our thinking, in our speaking, in our acting. So this is part of collecting your 1,000 Keshe coins over your lifetime. And you just can't collect the coins and do willy-nilly. You have to be rather serious or wish to be more peaceful. You don't have to be an angel. I don't know anyone in the foundation who's an angel, but you want to move in that direction of becoming more peaceful. So this is the World Peace Treaty, again, starting with you and your central energies, finding peace within yourself first, and then teaching this or sharing this with the others. Again, it's a greater struggle, this sort of thing, which you have to contain, and don't feel like you're alone. The rest of us are also dealing with this emotional imbalances. The sun is dealing with it, and even the creator has to balance out certain emotions of anger or other things. So it's not that even perhaps the creator is working on this, but apparently he's a bit more or a lot more successful at balancing out wrong emotions than we are. But we're learning, and we're learning this whole process. And as you saw in that initial video, these emotions can create conditions of unwellness. But beautifully enough, Mr. Keshe said how we can sort of undo those conditions of pain or unwellness or transmutation by controlling a number of things within our own structure. So this is the World Peace Treaty, asking everyone to sign it, renew it, join the peaceful universal community. This is one of the prerequisites. Again, wishing to become more peaceful, wishing to move away from killing and destruction. This is the idea. Would anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? And of course, at this point in time, I keep hearing we're closer and closer than ever to becoming quite unpeaceful, throwing around very high energy weapons, let's say, on this planet. But this is one of the reasons we're becoming more peaceful. We're awakening the collective awareness to become more peaceful. And once that energy sort of is almost like the sound barrier, once you get through it, we'll start to see more and more peace manifest in the matter state. But we're creating the energy of it first. And of course, the sun is helping. We know the sun has put out many of these high radiations, and it's just not something that disturbs communications. It's part of our elevation. And then we saw the swan and the 3-eye as well come through and give other energies, again, going from level to level to level to level. for our peacefulness, for our enlightenment. So again, we're just sort of reviewing or reconfirming our ethos. Anyone would like to read the World Peace Treaty? And I think peace and enlightenment seem to go hand in hand. The more peaceful you are, the more enlightened you are. The more enlightened you are, the more peaceful you should be. And I think that's a test of this knowledge as well, this plasma science. The more you understand it, the more peaceful you should become. Once you understand the creation, the process of creation, and sort of what is sacrosanct and what is open for you.
I'll read.
Please go right ahead. Thank you, Earl.
World Peace Treaty. We, as citizens of the earth from this moment on, accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We, shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this we all agree and swear to our nation, territory, council, religion, city, town, body, and soul. And then sign, maybe have it witnessed. And after signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other creatures, created beauties of the Creator.
Yes, that is amazing. This few words here, but they're quite deep as we understand the Creator shows himself in trillions of faces across the universe. It's all the Creator manifesting, let's say, in the matter state or in the energy state. So it's a beautiful understanding. And again, we're going even past the understanding of the prophets in the process of creation. They were ignorant to the process of creation, from a ray to a field to a plasma to a physics to a physics to a chemistry to a biology to a soul. And once that soul is created, it's sacrosanct. But again, I think if we start to employ this again, we're close to it, but we're not fully there yet. You can be proud of the work you do, and you can be proud of the person you are, and you can be proud of the difference you're making. And we're calling this more a universal difference in a way. And of course, this is the gift of the three wise men, which most of the Christians missed, according to my understanding. They weren't gifts in the matter state. They were actually gifts from the wise men of thinking, speaking, and acting good. And of course, they're holding something in their hand, which we always were told was precious oils or incense or perhaps precious metals and the rest. But now we've gone a little bit deeper into this understanding of controlling our sort of universe in a way, to have it to think good. As he said, if you don't do wrong, then you don't think wrong, and then you don't also speak wrong. So all of these things, I think, are, in a way, cosmic energies that we can generate from our own reactors. And of course, we're learning to play with the transmutation through this as well, because apparently that's part of the prerequisite in doing a more complete transmutations, is taking on the ethos of becoming a peaceful entity to be able to enter that universal community energy sort of dimension, as I see it. And again, I understand 1/1000th of 1/10000000th of 1/10000000th of 1%, if that, of this universal knowledge. But that leaves a lot of room to fill up. Any comments on either of these backgrounds? And so by doing this type of work and spreading this type of work, you're actually banking forward, as we call it. If you want your reward and your acknowledgement here, then that's where it'll come and it will stop. But just work in the background, so to speak. And of course, you may be thanked by travelers you sort of run into as you travel this dimension of energy. And of course, Mr. Keshe talked about perhaps creating new sort of entities in the universe by interacting with those who don't have any sort of physical reproductive organs. As we see, no mouth, no stomach, and no genitals. He specifically referred to that. But they create through the interaction of fields, and apparently we're on the verge of learning this process of creating the children of Mitra, as they call it, or again, out of universal fields, and something to do with the physicality as well. I don't understand it all. So our peace treaty, sign it, become part of the world peace, and bring a change to this planet. It's not the end all. It's just the next step in getting to the next step of joining with the universal community. But we keep working on this process. We do have a section where we create the Dome of Peace every day or multiple times a day. And again, we're adding to the energy sort of flux for peace and the souls, and this will become manifest through our wishes into the energy or into the matter state, which is just the inertia added to the energy, as I understand. So where shall we go from here? Maybe we'll take a look at the sort of overview of the 652, the universal energy body. And again, if you go back in the teachings, you'll see magrevs and this and that and so on. And they work if you do get it right in the matter state. But I think all these were sort of pedagogical ways of teaching us, tools to teach us of our own sort of interaction. As he said, we need to create a sort of a twinity or a dual core system, which we already have. We're built this way, we're structured this way, we're created this way. It's just a matter of discovering it a little bit more. And apparently this goes on step by step. It's a full building process. And again, it's up to you to open that door. I'm trying to open my own door, which I'm sure you are as well. But for me to understand how you do it and the way you do it the way it befits you and the way you understand it. This is my understanding. And this is what we see in that beauty of the disclaimer, which we've played here, where Mr. Keshe comments, this is the beauty of this knowledge. You understand it according to how it befits you, not how I tell you it should befit you. This is my understanding of sharing the knowledge in a way. Of course, you can share what you think you understand about this knowledge. No one is wrong, and no one is 100% right. Even the creator, I think, is moving up to another level. As he said, there are levels above the level of the creator, which again is just unimaginable. But if we go to this AI summary, and again, anyone want to add anything, share anything, feel free. So when we have this game of peace and enlightenment, you can see here, this is the game. We'll put this in the chat, us.getplasma.org. There's also a world.getplasma.org and so on. I think there's one in India and one in another server or types of servers handling the Far East, let's say, as we've been collaborating. Again, many features here. It takes some working through it. It's definitely not totally perfected, that's for sure. And we've heard many complaints. Complaints are still coming in. But again, this is all tied into sort of teething a new structure. And of course, the baby, when it's going through teething, has a lot of emotional issues. And this is part of the game and the development. So it's a pleasure to be able to play this game. It's actually a privilege that you could actually be delivering something and perfecting something that humanity will use on a much, much bigger scale than we see today. I don't think we can imagine what's envisioned here fully. So if we go to this is the actual workshop, I believe, and this is the latest one here. Okay. So one of the knowledge seekers has been using the AI to sort of compress an hour or 45 minutes to an hour teaching of Mr. Keshe into 9 to 12 minutes, as we see 11:43 here. So let's take a look at this. Again, a lot of it's about you and thinking about yourself and all kinds of things you can do for yourself as you become that last man standing. And if you're made in the image of the Creator, you have all the attributes, regardless of what your lover, your neighbor, your priest, your rabbi tells you. I made the man in the image of myself. So it's all about, again, it's not a physicality, it's more of an energy dimension. You're made out of the fields of the energy of the fields of the soul of the Creator. As we say, the Creator becomes the created, the created becomes the Creator. It's basically a loop of sorts. So let's take a look at this. Any comments from anyone before we start? As I said, Alex isn't with us today. I need all the help we can get. If not, let's go through this and think how it applies to you and your universal understanding. And again, we're all growing into this understanding at different speeds and different strengths. So just because I understand something in a certain way and you understand it in a certain way, that's perfectly fine. When you understand according to your own understanding, as Mr. Keshe has repeatedly said, or you take from this knowledge according to your intellect. And of course, the caveat is no central energy or no soul has a corner on knowledge. As we're learning more and more that the soul is quite aware of even the natural disasters and other things, although it doesn't always inform the physicality.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly mind-bending. We are opening up this intricate, deeply fascinating codex on the metaphysical mechanics of the universe, deciphering the concepts laid out in KSW 652. Think of this as stepping right into a modern-day Da Vinci's workshop, where biology, astrophysics, and the human soul all intersect on the drafting table. We're going to explore some profoundly alternative ideas about human existence today, so definitely get ready to stretch your imagination. All right, let's dive right in. Let me hit you with a massive, fundamental question posed by the source material right out of the gate. Do we actually need bones in space? Now, what's really interesting here is the core problem it highlights. We know biological evolution takes billions of years. If humanity is going to survive the wildly varying gravitational fields of deep space, well, waiting for our physical bodies to naturally evolve is simply way too slow. The source text uses this fantastic, kind of funny analogy for this predicament. It states, "We force the condition of physicality with a monkey suit for man to be." Basically, it argues that our physical body is essentially just a biological suit. The text asks us to consider a pretty simple fact. When we die, the exact moment the soul separates from this physical structure, it doesn't take bones or muscles with it. It travels completely as pure energy. So here is our roadmap for today's journey. We'll be looking at 1. Beyond the physical body. 2. The biological energy framework. 3. Melanin, myelin, and energy. 4. The emotional roots of disease. 5. Becoming a universal traveler. And finally, 6. Practical transmutation techniques. All right, let's jump straight into part 1, beyond the physical body. According to the text, relying on our physical monkey suit for deep space travel is entirely inadequate. And why is that? Because varying gravitational fields, imagine going straight from Earth to Mars, would cause our physical bones to literally and painfully stretch or shrink. Without becoming some sort of bizarre chewing gum entity of elasticated bones and muscles, the physical body alone just cannot survive those immediate leaps across the universe. Moving right along to Section 2, the Biological Energy Framework. The source material introduces this really fascinating concept, the soul of the cell. It argues that absolutely everything out there, even a stone, has an internal energy center, a soul. Therefore, every single cell in your body has its own soul. And the absolute crucial point here is that this cellular soul operates on such a high frequency that it simply cannot be fueled by standard matter-state food alone. This clearly illustrates a dual biological framework. On one side, you've got matter-state energy, the physical food you eat, which gets converted into calories, feeding the physical structure via the blood. But on the flip side, you have soul energy. This is described as energy absorbed from cosmic rays and dictated by human emotion, which directly feeds the soul of the cell. Now, you might be wondering, how does the physical side actually sync up with this energy? The source describes this using a really brilliant address-posted or taxi destination metaphor. Think about it. You have billions of blood cells floating around in your veins, but a specific blood cell won't just release its energy willy-nilly. It waits. It waits until it reaches its exact matching cellular address, say a kidney cell, where the energy of the blood perfectly matches the energy demanded by the soul of that specific cell. It's an incredibly precise switch-match-go system. And to really underscore the precision of this system, the teachings make a bold, specific claim, a 1-to-1 ratio. The text asserts that if you were to somehow measure the total number of cells making up your physical body, it would exactly match the total number of cells circulating within your blood. The whole structure is perfectly balanced to support this cellular delivery system. That brings us to Section 3, Melanin, Myelin, and Energy. The framework maps out what it calls an unseen neural circle. According to the text, it all starts with the skin. The melanin in your skin acts as the primary interface, absorbing energy or cosmic rays straight from the environment. This energy then jumps across a space gap, moving from the stronger energy source to the weaker one, into the myelin. The myelin then transfers this energy directly into your nervous system, which communicates with the emotional core of the individual. And here is a truly striking biological assertion from the text. The brain, the skin, and the lungs are fundamentally composed of the exact same tissue. They form one massive, continuous interface. The skin interfaces with the environment, the lungs interface with atmospheric gases, and they are all seamlessly connected right back to the brain, which acts as the ultimate interface for the soul of the man. Let's look at Section 4, the emotional roots of disease. The source material presents a highly alternative view on conditions like cancer, describing them essentially as an energy mismatch. The framework suggests that if a person's emotional energy changes, it actually alters the energy requirement of this cell's soul. If the physical blood lacks the corresponding matter state energy to match it, the cell just pauses. It becomes denser, changing its cycle and frequency, while waiting for a matching solution that just isn't arriving. On the flip side, this exact mechanism is how the text explains ancestral or monastic healing practices. By bringing intensely focused attention and emotion to an area of pain, changing the breathing rhythm, and altering the energy of the lymph, a person can literally dictate where the body's energy needs to do its work. It's all about consciously overriding the physical with the emotional and energetic. All right, on to Section 5, Becoming a Universal Traveler. There's a really striking question posed by the author here. It's basically, would I buy a Rolls Royce and kill myself to do 200 when I can use the Rolls Royce of my brain, my soul, and travel the span of the universe? This brilliantly illustrates the contrast. why drag a heavy, fragile, physical monkey suit through the harsh, unforgiving conditions of space when you have access to the immense, limitless power of the soul? The text describes the exact mechanism for this as the double reactor system. By utilizing emotion, which, by the way, the text argues is independent of the physical brain, in conjunction with the soul, a person creates a dual magnetic field. By establishing this field, you dictate your own gravitational magnetic conditions. Your soul propels through space, and the physical body is either left behind or transmuted into a form that simply follows the energy. Finally, Section 6, Practical Transmutation Techniques. The source actually provides a specific exercise for energetic movement. It asks students to isolate a target area, starting with the toe. The goal here isn't to physically move it, but to transfer thought, emotion, and energy directly to it. You then practice cascading this energy upwards to the ankle, the knee, the hips, eventually encapsulating it all in the brain. Fascinatingly, the text explicitly advises against shaking hands during this practice period, so you don't accidentally transfer away the specific energy you've been working so hard to build. To make this energy movement actually happen, the text outlines a very precise breathing rhythm. This isn't just about oxygen. According to the framework, this specific rhythm changes the beat of the heart and alters the energy given to the lymph, effectively acting as a steering wheel to dictate exactly where in your body your energy will do its transmutational work. This specific rhythm breaks down exactly like this. You inhale for 4 seconds, hold that breath for 4 seconds, exhale slowly for 6 seconds, and hold empty for 2 seconds. The text highly encourages practicing this sequence while bringing your attention to a specific point, whether that's a knee to alleviate pain or your brain to practice becoming a transmuter of space. It's a profound exercise in taking conscious control over your entire biological energy framework. We've covered some absolutely incredible ground today, building a comprehensive guide to KSW 652. We've explored the inadequacy of the physical body for space travel, the biological energy framework of the soul and cells, the fascinating role of melanin and myelin in energy absorption, the emotional roots of disease, and even practical techniques for transmutation and universal travel. Based on this framework, it all comes down to mastering those emotional and energetic circuits within us. So, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Are you ready to let the physical monkey suit hang and traverse the universe as pure energy? Thanks so much for joining the Explainer, and keep exploring.
Okay, let's put this in the chat. Again, that your brain becomes a transmuter of space. Let's just get the chat here. We'll just put this in here. This is the AI summary of 652. Any comments? Transmuter of space. Oops, wrong. Okay. There it is. So if we go back to the peace treaty, transmuter of space, or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. Again, I keep referring to the space as the space, again, what we see in the depths of the universe, we see in the depths of the soul of the man. So to me, that space, unless you're traveling physically in the universe, which is hard to do, to go very far as we understand it, this space is the energy dimension, and that dimension is right within you. And maybe I was thinking of going back to that part of the teaching where he said you can start to help yourself by learning to focus as monks do, your attention and emotion, and combining this with a breathing technique. Maybe we'll save that. Any comments on this? Again, it's for you to open it up. Only you can really open it up. But we can share what we think we understand about it.
When I went to monk school, the first month was only taught about breath and breath work for a whole month.
That's amazing.
Then,
Mr. Keshe said, Randy, Mr. Keshe was talking in the past about breathing. He said, I can teach you for months just about breathing.
Yeah. And then that was introductory. I only did 6 months of the year course, so I couldn't finish the other 6 months. So, because I moved to Thailand, I took the course in Canada, and then I met the monk in Thailand and continued for another few weeks there. So, breathing is extremely, extremely important. So, with the thing that Mr. Keshe revealed in the last workshop, I'm going to read the transcript and start practicing that version and see what happens.
Yeah, the workshop about 2 workshops ago, we gave you the technique for creating the energy of a steak. I think it was like 10 counts and 10 counts hold. And apparently there is something to the technique, the rhythm, the emotion, the attention, and it all needs to be focused. So he said to start to practice this. It's something we can do for ourselves, understand ourselves, and perhaps, again, I think what he's talking about is the emotional and the energy dimension takes control over the physicality and the pain. As we know, if you can create the energy first, the physicality will follow it. Again, I'm not saying it happens in 1 second, although it could. But this is the idea of learning to start to play and focus with your magrav, if we could call it that. Maybe we should look in the transcript, Randy. And I think it's somewhere near the end, but it's quite a bit here in the teaching. Yeah, maybe we should start. Here it is, what we saw in this video: 4-second breath in, 4-second hold, 6 breathe out. But then there's a bit more to it. But it's something you can start to learn and practice. And again, I think it's not only for the pain, as he said, it's for the transmutation of the sort of environment or the fields of the universe.
I like, just to mention, when you put your finger on it, I also focus with my soul straight from the central energy center. And it is amazing. And if you allow, if you have pain, you allow the pain. You don't try to stop the pain, because that's how your soul will focus where exactly the energy is needed.
Okay,
It works.
again, we don't take any bones into space. Now, how many times, of course, we call it a dream, we should be calling it traveling. When you travel, when your eyes are closed and you see yourself on the beach or in a car or maybe visiting mother or whatever, do you imagine yourself not having any bones? No, you imagine yourself as just who you are now, but you're in the dimension of energy. So this is why he's saying it's a much quicker and faster and safer way to travel the universe than trying to haul this bulky suit with us and all the precautions and, all the highly charged energy fields that this physicality can't take. Unless, of course, you develop a UFO and create shielding shields. But again, it's still a very slow process to travel the universe that way when you can do it right within yourself, as I see it. So for Randy's edification and all of our edifications, maybe we'll go back here and hear a little bit more about exploring this understanding, how you control your breathing. And of course, the guru came to Mr. Keshe. He's mentioned that story many times, who his followers said he hadn't eaten any physical food in 45 days or whatever it was. And he couldn't even walk on the ground. I guess people laid down on the ground so he could walk on top of them, or they carried him or whatever. But as soon as Mr. Keshe said, "You're lying, you are feeding yourself. You understand how to twist your body, turn your body, create certain emotions, or water, or the rest." So again, this is not anything new. It's just that the knowledge has been hidden. And of course, we never believed in ourselves. We've always looked outside to someone else or something else to meet what we want to achieve. So he's talking about creating this. I don't know how far back I should go. All right, maybe right around here, 40 minutes into it. Then we'll go to the interaction of these AI discussing this workshop. But this is Mr. Keshe's words. Where did I say? Around 42. Again, this might not be precise. We're going to lead up to it. So I'm just going to allow the soul to pick a spot, and we'll start here. Actually, let me bring up the transcript. Here we are at 42 already. I guess I had thought about this. Okay, so let's listen to this. Make a comment to anyone if you'd like. Again, it helps to understand. Your comments help us to understand, because I think we all have understandings that the others don't have, and the others have understandings that we don't have. By you being courageous enough to open and share your understanding, it helps all of us, including yourself.
Human condition of the survival. This is why matching energies are needed to be able to confirm existence. Yin and yang, soulmate, and how many other names mankind has found for this simple interaction of the matter state with the energy and the space in between, what we call the lymph of the man. The identity of the matter state for the lymph, it comes when it reads and it receives the emotion of the soul through the skin of the man and through the nervous system. If you can change one or control one or bring one to work not in synchronization with another, you create also some mayhems, because the emotion comes, or the soul of the man telling the skin what to absorb, then that goes to what transferred to myelin, and then the rest of it, and the circle is complete. The beauty of this is that even the heart, which creates the circulation of the matter state energy, itself has a soul which is connected to the soul of the man. What I feed, I'm fed by. I am the beginning and I am the end. And now you understand how the system works. And if you understand this, and if you understood how to control your breathing, how to bring attention to a given point, how to change the dimension, you can transmute. You see, as I explained, when you do the pain on the knee, you bring the tension, you bring the motion of physical condition, that's where I want it. You change your lymph, your breathing, and then energy gets different. I can heal myself. Now, instead of using, let's say, your knee, bring that attention to your soul in the dimension of physicality of the brain of the man. And then you see the soul flies, does not need the physicality for its transmutation. You had a knee pain, you changed your breathing, you brought underlying motions to your muscles, to that area, to interact with the lymph of it. You brought the tension, or call the pressure and the pain emotion by the skin to feel it, and the pain goes. Now do that with your emotion and do that with your soul. Now you understand you can fly the span of the universe in the dimension of the soul, and you need no physicality. Unless you expand what we call encapsulation energy beyond the physicality of the man, that yes, okay, you can take it with you, but sorry, this is going to be a burden on the moon. It's different, and the pressures are different, and physicality has a problem to move.
You know, it was funny. He was talking about the stretching like a Gumby or something like that. Maybe that was in the AI video, but in other teachings and other locations, he had said that in past times, man had the ability to stretch his arm out like 20 feet. Now, was it the actual arm was being stretched, or was it you were able to sort of not transmute an object, but teleport sort of an object with your emotions? And it would look like you could reach to the top of the tree and pick the best apple off the top of the tree because no one else could reach that far, in a way. That's what I was thinking. But here he said that the physical body will not adapt properly in different locations around the universe. For us to do this, it would take probably another billion years, I think, of mutations and so on, and changes for man to do this. And maybe man will achieve it in the future. But right now, to travel the universe, again, it's the dimension of energy. This is how the creator moves. And as he's often said, if the ones in the UFO knew how the creator moves or travels, they wouldn't be in the UFO, but they haven't understood it. And so that's one of the sharings we'll be doing with the universal community, at least those who fly in physical crafts, let's say.
But the soul is free. Just move your toe, bring the pressure to it. The motion does not to be moving it. Just know that you're doing it, and then transfer the energy to it, the thought and the motion of the soul and the breathing, and then you see how the pain goes. Move it next to the ankle, next to the knee, next to your head, next to the part of organ of your body, and then to the neck, and then put it inside the soul. And then you see how you become what we call the passengers of the universe, because you have created double magnetic field between your emotion, which does not need the physicality of the brain and the soul. Double reactors.
So who can create that double reactor within you? Only you. And that's if you want to do it. But as he said, if you want to do it, you will achieve it. Many of these things starts with an intention and wanting to achieve, and you will achieve. But it's your structure that you have to play with, and your mom and dad can't play with it, and neither can your wife or your children. It's you who has to apply, figure it out in a way. But we're getting a lot of help, so don't think it'll stay a mystery forever. And we're already doing it so much, it's just that we haven't been conscious about these whole things. I mean, you're splitting neutrons all the time within your own structure. You're traveling with a daydream or with an evening dream, let's say. So you're a huge field generator, low energy, nuclear plasmatic reactor. But whoever thought of ourselves as this way? So there it is, Randy, a little bit of it. Let's go more to it here. But it's not only for pain, it's to get into that dimension of universal transmutation. Anyone becoming more successful or practicing it, if they'd like to share, again, some of these things are rather private, no problem.
Two different energies, finding balance in position in respect to the what we call gravitational field of the earth, and then voila, you propel the space of the universe. Now you understand how you exercise, how you start to do. Start from your extremities and move up and see what changes. and then observe. Then you bring it to your soul, we know where it is, and try to encapsulate the energy in what we call the structure of the brain. Instead of your blood vessels interacting the magnetic field motion with the soul, you create the energy through the same process yourself. Now you dictate the gravitational magnetic field. Now you dictate the motion of the soul, and where the soul goes, the physicality will follow, but it changes that it can follow, and you transmute.
Who's dictating this? You.
This is how every cell in your body transmutes energy from what we call melanin to myelin, and then to the dimension of the soul. The weaker one receives energy, and then when it changes, the soul takes over and becomes the dimensional life. This is how you die. This is how the end of life comes for man. The energy of the physicality in conjunction with what is circulating, what is set up, creates a dimension of double reactor energy, which allows the soul to travel the span of the universe. And this cascade, which is there, is actually another protector of the soul of the man, is that eggshell, that membrane that is over the egg. The soul still sits within. Once you understand this, you have to exercise, you have to practice, you have to understand, then would I buy a Rolls Royce with a cyclister engine and kill myself to do 200, and if I do 120, my police stops me and gives me a ticket, where I use the Rolls Royce of my brain, my soul, and travel the span of universe that there is no policeman, and man can travel the speed beyond his own imagination. Now you understand how it works. Now this is your exercise till next week. Learn fast movement, you failed. Energy movement is what you're targeting. Start with your toe. And move it gradually up to your knee, to your hip, to your back. And don't shake hands with no one, because then you transfer energies which you might need, and you have to start from zero. Now you understand the process of the transmutation. Now you understand why we teach about myelin and melanin and the rest. Because it's the way you transfer energy, it's the way you create energy, it's the way you distribute energy, and it's the way you have the energy of the soul and not energy of the physicality. Gradually, in the next few weeks, we teach you more. But start practicing. Start practicing how you are going to be able to transmute, but you have to understand the structure of your physicality, that in a space you don't leave your toes and your foot behind and come back, oh my God, I used to have a foot on the moon, now I have none. Learn the boundaries of the energy, learn how to breathe, learn how to bring attention to the point, learn how to divert the energy of the emotion to that point. And point it, put your finger on it. But that's where I need you. 4-second breath in, 4-second hold, 6-second breathe out, 2 seconds hold. This changes the rhythm of the heart. This changes the energy which is given to the lymph. This now tells where I want you to do your work.
Okay, Randy, was that fairly clear or a bit clear? As he said, you have to learn how to breathe, learn how to bring attention, learn the boundaries of the energy, learn to divert the energy of the emotion to that point.
That was very clear.
That was
Just a comment is I had a friend and we were at the gym and we were talking about lymph drainage, And I said, and the breathing is the most important. And she was still standing up, and she did the rhythm, the 4 and the I think 2 and 6 and then stop. And then she said, "Why is my heart beating so strongly?" It worked immediately on her. So I was quite surprised how quickly
Okay,
it
and
worked.
there was a little, go ahead. Oh, somebody was going to say
No,
something.
it works. It works, especially if the person is not thinking it's going to act a certain way. So she was surprised.
Mhm.
So yeah, it worked.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Jalal asked a question about the breathing and so on and the patches. Mr. Keshe added more here, Randy, about when you sort of release that energy. There's a bit of a timing factor, it seems here. So let's go to 222. Again, these are things you can do for yourself. You have a toothache, you have a earache, you have a headache. Try it. And if you start to master this, again, you can become that last man standing or become your own, in a way, doctor, so to speak. Maybe not for everything at this point, but this is what it's going to lead to. And then, of course, the most fantastic thing is the transmutation into the universe, which you're already really in. This is what I'm thinking. Okay, we'll start maybe 15 seconds before this. I don't know how it's going to sync up. And this was Jalal's question about the patches, if this was similar to what we're doing. And this is where Mr. Keshe said how that holding creates the panic, which creates the weakness. And at that time, apparently, when you let the air out, this is where the transfer comes. And then that hold after the 6 seconds is where you confirm that the energy has moved. Again, I'm not understanding much of it, but something only you can apply to yourself as I see it at this point. But what a gift to have if you do have a headache or you just maybe hit your finger on something and it's throbbing or your toe or something. Try it. And again, he said, we have to learn this. This is not something you put a pie in the oven and in 45 minutes you've mastered it. I think it's a bit longer, but maybe some people will master it sooner than others. So let's go to this part, Randy, and maybe you'd like to make a comment or anyone else. It's a very short question and answer.
Are you on planet Zeus?
Here you're
No.
breaking up.
Yeah. What can I do, Mr. Keshe? If I want to understand the breathing system, is it like what we done before with the batches? The pain is a strong source of energy, and the batches is a low.
That's a
plasma.
physical. That's a physical method. Now
Yeah.
you can do it yourself. You don't need that way.
Exactly. So we are using the breathing, which is going inside and holding the breathing for it to reduce the strength of the matter state to become nano in a way. And we're holding the pain and thinking about the point of the pain as a strong plasma.
Yeah.
A strong plasma always gives to the weaker plasma, yes?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking in that way.
Yeah.
Right.
You
Yes?
see, psychologically, on the emotion side, when you hold your breath, is a panic. And panic brings weakness. And that's the time when you take the energy from the point. You understand?
Well, yeah. Yes.
And this is the way it works.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Keshe. So it's a
Thank
very
you very
quick
much.
question. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And there was another point in here, Randy, where he said the hold was where you actually confirm of the work you've just done. Again, I've never mastered this, haven't really practiced it much. Let's see if he can confirm. Let's just see if we can find it, because there was another part. Okay, yeah. If you've been with our teaching, God knows, okay, last 28 days. Releases energy that confirms the conduct to recall its activity. Okay, was that it? Maybe that was it, or I think there's 7 places. Okay, I'm just looking. Let's see if we can find this. Okay, this is something else. That's something else. Okay, I guess I can't find it, or perhaps it's in another location. But that holding on the after the 6 out is something to, I thought he said confirm. Maybe we'll hear it in the announcements. How about if we just put up our beautiful background? This background came from Knowledge Seekers 651, which I'm glad Rick has found a new source of backgrounds. This is some of, I know Ed uses a flavor of Quint Bertholtz or something in some of his AI, and Rick has been taking these. So why don't we put this up? And this is something, a discussion between 2 AIs about the workshop. And Ed has sort of put this video together. It's rather, oops, this is not the video. This is the workshop. We're going to use this as the background. The only thing I have is the audio. So let's see if we can glean more from it. Feel free to stop it. Any comments from anyone would like to make? And no worries, because once the cosmic ray antennas and the headsets come out and some of these other features, it's going to help you to learn this whole process to the point where it will become ingrained within you, and you'll be able to do it sort of on demand in a way. But we'll have to see whether it'll be even in this generation. But hopefully we'll see more and more as time goes on. Okay. So we're going to leave this background, and we're going to play about 20 minutes, which will take us close to the top of the hour for the Dome of Peace. Again, we've hardly scratched the surface of this workshop, and then we'll listen to Alex's teaching for today, or what he wanted to share. And it's something about the bone marrow, I think. So here we go on this AI sort of having a pretend, or not really pretend, but some sort of as if they were humans.
On Mars, there is a... Welcome back, learner.
All right. Hello, everybody. Well, we thought we were going to drop in for a quick incognito visit to our favorite Andromeda Cafe, but no such luck with this crowd, hey? Somebody let out that we had a new little instrumental that we put together, and we're calling it Almost Carefree, and y'all wanted to hear it, so...
Have you ever, like, stubbed your toe on a piece of furniture and just thought in that exact moment of agony, wow, that table is undeniably painfully solid?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that sharp pain that really grounds you in reality, right?
Exactly. We just navigate our entire lives operating on this basic assumption that the world around us is totally fixed. But what if the furniture in your living room, or your own physical body, or even that frustration you feel when you stub your toe, are essentially just illusions?
Which is a pretty wild thing to consider.
Right. What if everything we experience as solid reality is really nothing more than a temporary manifestation? Something created by, invisible interacting cosmic fields.
Well, it's a premise that completely upends conventional physics and biology. I mean, it suggests that solidity is really just a localized event, like an anomaly in an otherwise totally fluid universe.
Yeah, and that brings us to the topic of today's deep dive. We are looking at a wildly esoteric and super detailed framework developed by Ed Weatherall. He calls this system plasma technology, or the science of creation.
Right, and we're focusing specifically on one of his presentations. It's titled Knowledge of the Universe, KSW 637.
Mark, I don't think
it really acts as a dense blueprint for this entirely alternative model of reality.
I want to be clear right up front. Our mission here is to act as neutral explorers for you.
Yeah.
We aren't here to say these claims are scientifically valid.
Go ahead, Ike. I can try.
I don't think.
Okay, I'm going to close this. It may not. The first one definitely wasn't it. I don't know where that came from.
Right.
So this one, let's try it again.
If-
Here it is. This is your soul. This is an AI generated discussion about teaching in the KSW 652. Let's see.
Have you ever tried to take your physical body to live on Mars? There is
Thank you.
a very real, very terrifying biological reality you have to face.
Right, yeah. It is not pretty.
No, it
Nope.
really isn't. Under that completely alien gravity, your bones might literally begin to stretch or shrink. And if you are, say, a teenager growing rapidly and your bones grow faster than your muscle tissue in that environment, well, your own skeleton will pull your muscles and ligaments apart.
It is a brutal image, but I mean, it really highlights the absolute absurdity of our current approach to space exploration. We are just so obsessed with the hardware, you know?
Right, exactly.
We think that if we just build a thicker metal box, pack it with combustible fuel, and stuff our incredibly fragile biological bodies inside like a delicate cargo, we've basically solved interstellar travel.
Yeah, we treat it as an engineering problem, but when you dive into the framework we are exploring today, you realize we might actually be asking completely the wrong questions. So welcome to today's deep dive. We're exploring some incredibly dense, paradigm-shifting source material today from the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. Specifically, we're looking at excerpts from a lecture known as KSW 652, along with this fascinating accompanying text titled The Soul of Man and the Universal Traveler.
And just to set some expectations for you right out of the gate, this material requires us to leave almost all of our conventional Newtonian physics and traditional scientific assumptions at the door.
Yeah, leave your textbooks behind for this one.
Exactly.
So what we're doing is we're just listening to about a 20-minute, it's already gone maybe 5 minutes, that Ed has created about 2 AIs discussing the 652nd Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Again, you may find some points in this that will, or objections one to the other, and they may provide some answers you can use in your discussion with others about this universal energy body.
We're going to impartially explore a radically different perspective today. This framework basically proposes that relying on matter-state technology, like, building rockets to forcefully push mass through a vacuum, is entirely backward.
The mission for this deep dive is to explore this alternative, a framework that completely abandons rockets, propulsion physics, heavy metals, all of it, in favor of biology, consciousness, and the soul.
Right. It argues that the ultimate space vehicle isn't a ship at all.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand this shift, where do we even begin?
Well, we have to start with the fundamental dilemma, the material.
Well, that was interesting. The best spaceship is not a spaceship at all, or it's not a physical ship. Again, this is the idea. What we see in the depths of the universe, we see in the depths of the soul of the man. The secret is in the brain, and the spaceship is in the soul of the man. And this is the safe way to travel and the instant way to travel. And I think other governments, agencies, other people have been playing with this as well, or have some sort of understanding of this sort of energy dimension travel, which you do every day, whether it's a daytime travel in a daydream or a nighttime travel. We don't always remember, but there's traveling going on. And again, we say traveling, but it's instantaneous. So,
material poses about our physical form. The author asks this really striking question to sort of challenge our baseline assumptions. He asks, when a person dies and the soul leaves the physicality, does it carry any bones? Does it take muscles or blood vessels with it?
Well, obviously not. Those stay right here.
Exactly. So if the core essence of a human being doesn't require a skeleton to move on, why on earth do we assume that to travel the vastness of the universe, we need to drag this heavy, fragile dimension of physicality with us?
Right. It makes zero sense when you look at it that way.
The premise here is that the human body isn't a vessel for space travel. It is a massive bottleneck. Human evolution takes billions of years, right? We just cannot sit around waiting for our biology to naturally evolve the capacity to survive.
and of course, when you have these traveling, when you sleep and so on, isn't it you as you but in the dimension of energy. So you've already experienced this and what it's like. Now he's saying we can create it and direct it.
In deep space.
It makes me think of trying to drive a standard everyday commuter car to the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right, because it doesn't matter how good of a driver you are. The hardware simply isn't built for the crushing pressures of that environment. It's fundamentally the wrong vehicle for the medium.
That is a perfect analogy. You are dealing with an environment that requires a totally different state of being. And actually, this brings us to a crucial clarification from the source material that is just so easy to misunderstand.
Oh, you mean the monkey suit thing?
Yes. Throughout these texts, there is this repeated reference to something called a monkey suit. Now, initially, you might think they are talking about the human body itself, like the flesh and bone is a metaphorical monkey suit for the soul.
I definitely had to read that section twice to make sure I was tracking, because that is exactly what I assumed they meant at first.
Right, but they aren't. In this framework, the monkey suit refers to the actual technological spacesuits that humanity currently uses to try and survive out there in space. Yeah, the material views our multi-million-dollar astronaut suits as primitive, clunky, matter-state workarounds. We are forcing a condition of physicality by wrapping ourselves in this clumsy outer shell just to protect our fragile inner shell.
Like trying to fix a leak with duct tape.
Exactly. It's treating a universal energy state problem with a highly localized plumbing-level solution.
Okay, so if wrapping ourselves in high-tech monkey suits is a technological dead end, and our fragile bones will just snap or tear apart in different gravitational fields, what is the alternative? I mean, how are we supposed to survive out there if the hardware is totally useless?
Well, to answer that, the source asks us to look completely inward. The framework suggests that to become what it calls a traveler of the universe, we have to stop operating on the physical matter level and start operating on the energy level. Physicality has to be protected by or manifested by energy.
Which brings up this incredibly detailed biological energy framework outlined in the text. And this is where things take a major turn, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
According to this material, every single cell in your body possesses its own soul. And the text defines this cellular soul not in some mystical sense, but as an internal functional energy center. It even mentions that stones have this.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is the implication of that cellular energy center, because if every cell has a soul, this high-level energy core, well, it needs a fuel source, right?
Right.
And the text makes a very bold claim here. It says physical food is entirely inadequate for this job. When you eat a meal, the physical matter is converted into what the text refers to as GANs, which is essentially a specific matter-state transition.
Okay, so food turns into GANs.
Yes, but that broken down physical matter only has enough energy density to sustain the physical part of the cell. It physically cannot feed the soul of the cell.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if the sandwich I ate for lunch is only feeding the physical matter of my cells, how is this internal energy center, the cellular soul, actually surviving?
Right, where is the power coming from?
Exactly. And the text introduces this mind-blowing concept of how the blood system operates, describing it like an address posted delivery network.
It is a brilliant way to visualize it. Think of the billions of blood cells floating through your veins right now, like a fleet of taxi cabs.
Right.
But they don't just drop off energy randomly to whichever cell is closest. A blood cell will only release its energy when it reaches a perfect, predetermined match. So the blood cell carrying energy meant for a kidney cell will absolutely refuse to release it to a brain cell.
It's locked in.
Exactly. It is a highly specific switch, match, go system based on energy signatures.
I love that concept. But to back up how perfectly matched the system is, the text drops a statistic that made me stop and reread it.
The 1-to-1 ratio.
Yes. It claims that if you were to measure the total number of cells that make up your physical body, and then measure the total number of cells circulating within your blood, the numbers match exactly. It is a 1-to-1 ratio.
A perfect mirror image.
But just statistically, mathematically, how is that even possible? We are talking about billions of cells constantly dying and regenerating. A perfect 1-to-1 ratio sounds impossible.
In a purely mechanical matter-state view of biology, it does sound impossible. But remember the framework we are operating in here. This perfect numerical balance is presented as an absolute requirement for the energy transfer to occur.
I see.
Yeah, if the ratio is off, the address posted system fails because there wouldn't be a matching receiver for every transmitter. the body maintains this equilibrium energetically.
But that still leaves the biggest question. If physical food isn't providing the high-level energy to feed the cell's soul, where is that energy coming from?
Right. Well, the source points to a very specific biological interface for this, and it centers on melanin and myelin. Let's break this down because this is really where the biology actually meets the cosmos.
Okay, let's hear it.
According to the premise, your skin isn't just a physical barrier. It is the largest sensory tissue in the body, directly interfacing with the environment. Specifically, the melanin in your skin, the pigment, acts as an energy absorber.
But it's not just soaking up UV rays from the sun, right?
No, not at all. The text claims melanin actively absorbs cosmic rays and high-level background energy from the universe itself.
Wait, so the skin is basically functioning as a giant biological solar panel for cosmic rays?
In a sense, yeah, exactly. The melanin acts as the antenna, absorbing this cosmic energy. And once absorbed, it has to get into the nervous system somehow.
Right.
The text describes this energy passing across what it calls a space gap. You can think of this space gap almost like a gap in a spark plug or a magnetic field separation. And the foundational rule here is that stronger energy always feeds weaker energy.
So the cosmic energy absorbed by the melanin is the stronger force, and it arcs across this gap to feed the weaker force, which is the myelin. And the myelin is that protective sheath wrapped around our nerves.
Precisely. The myelin acts as the receiver. It takes that cosmic energy and shoots it directly into the nervous system. The nervous system then evaluates what the emotion or the soul requires, distributes it through that perfectly balanced blood network we just talked about, and completes an energy circle.
That is wild.
To support this, the text points out that developmentally, your brain, your skin, and your lungs are all composed of the exact same base tissue type in utero. They are inextricably linked, forming the primary interface between the external environment and the internal soul of the man.
Okay, if I'm following the logic here, we have this perfect closed-loop system. Our skin acts as a cosmic antenna, pulling down energy, arc welding it across a gap to our nervous system, which then distributes it via an exact 1-to-1 ratio of blood cells to body cells.
Yep, you got it.
It sounds beautiful. But what happens when this incredibly delicate matching system breaks down?
Well, that naturally leads us into how this framework views the concept of disease and healing. When that perfect matching system is disrupted, the physical body suffers the consequences. Let's look at the mechanics of cancer as explained by this source, for instance.
And just a quick reminder for you listening, we are strictly exploring the philosophical and biological framework presented in this specific text. It describes cancer not merely as a physical ailment or some random genetic mutation, but fundamentally as an energy mismatch.
Right. Let's say your emotional energy or the energy of your soul changes at a specific point in your body. The energy level alters. But for whatever reason, your physical blood circulation doesn't have the matching energy signature to interact with it.
So the taxi cab arrives,
Yep.
but the address doesn't match anymore.
Yes. The matter is still there, the physical pulse is there, the lymph fluid is present, but there is no matching energy in the blood to complete the circuit.
So you get a biological bottleneck, the cell essentially gets stuck waiting.
Exactly. Because it is starved of its energetic match, the cell falls back into a denser, harder, purely matter state. It is basically sitting there, solidifying, waiting to receive the matching energy from a blood cell that never comes.
Which introduces this massive psychosomatic connection, right? The text suggests that our emotions actually dictate what the skin absorbs in the first place, meaning our emotional state is tuning the dial on our melanin.
Yes, which then determines which cosmic energies we pull down, which in turn dictates whether our physical cells get the matching energy they need.
It is entirely interconnected. You are the architect of the energy you receive.
Totally. And to demonstrate that this system isn't just passive, that it can be actively manipulated, the text brings up the example of certain monks. It asks a really great question. How do these individuals who don't have huge muscles, who aren't powerlifting or running marathons, manage to perform incredible physical feats or rapidly heal themselves?
Right. They aren't in the gym. They are sitting in absolute stillness most of the time.
The material claims they are exercising underlying muscles that operate entirely through the lymph system. They don't do this with physical exertion. They do it by bringing intense, focused emotion and attention to specific points in the body.
Wow, okay.
If a monk has a sharp pain in his knee, he doesn't just put ice on it and rest. He fundamentally changes his breathing rhythm, He subtly contracts specific muscle tissues to alter the flow of the lymph, and he concentrates the emotion of the pain to draw in high-level energy from the soul directly to that location to fix the mismatch.
The source even expands on this by mentioning lizards dropping their tails to escape predators or snakes shedding their skin.
Oh, yeah, the snake example is great.
Yeah, it argues that a snake doesn't just shed its skin through mechanical friction. It's the internal emotional pressure, the physical restriction of not fitting into the jacket of the skin anymore that triggers the biological change.
Right.
The emotion is the catalyst. Without the emotion, the text implies, the biological mechanism would never fire at all.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, I mean, if a person can heal a degenerating knee simply by changing their breathing, contracting specific tissues, and focusing emotional energy to alter the lymph system, what else is possible?
A whole lot more, I'd imagine.
If you can consciously control the energy absorption of your melanin and the distribution through your blood by harnessing your emotion, well, you are no longer just a passive passenger trapped in a physical vehicle.
Which brings us to the ultimate destination of the source material. If we can use emotion and breath to heal our physical form, the text basically asks, can we use those exact same biological tools to detach from the physical form entirely?
Yes. This is the concept of transmutation. The ultimate goal of the text is for humanity to evolve into what it calls passengers of the universe.
And this is where we finally get back to space travel, but this time completely leaving the high-tech monkey suits behind.
Right. The framework suggests that true space travel requires creating a double reactor system within yourself. You have the energy of your emotion, and the text explicitly notes that emotion does not actually require the physical brain matter to exist, by the way.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then you have the energy of the soul. By consciously finding a balance between these two immense energy fields and altering how they interact with Earth's magnetic and gravitational fields, you can literally propel yourself through the space of the universe.
So it's propulsion through magnetic field interaction, not physical thrust.
Exactly.
The text uses a fantastic analogy to drive this home. It asks, why would you spend a fortune on a high-performance Rolls-Royce, but pull out the engine, replace it with something incredibly weak, and refuse to drive over 20 miles an hour just because you're terrified a policeman might give you a ticket?
It's a great metaphor. In this analogy, the Rolls-Royce is the combined power of your brain and your soul. The weak engine is our reliance on the physical body.
Right. The text says that by utilizing the true engine of the Rolls-Royce, the double reactor of emotion and soul, you can travel the span of the universe where there are no physical policemen to pull you over.
You can travel at a speed beyond the limits of your own imagination. Trying to take the physical body to the moon is just an unnecessary burden.
You don't want to accidentally leave your physical foot on the moon, right? Once detached, the soul is free to move seamlessly.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you? How do you actually put the keys in the ignition of this biological Rolls-Royce? Surprisingly, the source material doesn't just leave this as abstract philosophy. It provides a step-by-step practical guide for you to begin practicing transmutation.
It does, and it heavily stresses that this isn't about fast, jerky physical movements. It is an exercise in pure energy movement. It instructs you to start at the absolute extremities. You begin by gently focusing all your attention on your toe.
But crucially, you do not physically move the toe, right?
Right, no physical movement. Instead, you transfer your thought, your emotion, and your internal energy to it.
You essentially trick your nervous system into believing you are moving it entirely internally.
Exactly. And once you can actually feel that concentrated energy humming in your toe, you begin to gradually move it upwards. You pull the energy up to your ankle, then slowly into your knee, up into your hip, traversing your back, until eventually you try to encapsulate all of that gathered energy within the structure of your brain.
Wow.
You are taking the raw energy of the soul, giving it direction, putting your finger on it and saying, that's exactly where I need you to be.
And this intense internal energy movement is paired with a very specific, deliberate breathing technique. The text outlines a 4-4-6-2 rhythm.
Let's walk through the mechanics of that rhythm. You inhale deeply for 4 seconds. You hold that breath for 4 seconds. You exhale slowly for 6 seconds. And then you hold your breath out in the empty space for 2 seconds before inhaling again.
4-4-6-2. But why those specific intervals, does it say?
Yeah, the text explains that this highly specific rhythm forces a change in the rhythm of the heart, which in turn alters the energy being delivered to the lymph system. It acts as the physical mechanism that tells your body where you want it to direct its work.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, whether your goal is directing energy to a damaged knee to clear an energy mismatch, or directing it all the way up to the brain to initiate the process of becoming a transmuter of space.
But I have to bring up a very specific and honestly kind of hilarious warning attached to this exercise in the text.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
It explicitly warns the practitioner, do not shake hands with anyone while you are practicing this.
It is a very crucial, if slightly awkward, detail.
It warns that if you have spent all this time building up this incredible cosmic energy, meticulously pulling it from your toe all the way up to your brain, and then you casually walk into the kitchen and shake hands with a friend or a coworker, you will accidentally ground yourself.
Just zap them.
Yeah, you will instantly transfer all that carefully built up energy right into them. And then you have to start all over from absolute zero.
Which is funny, but this raises an important question about the hidden dynamics of our daily routines. If you follow the premise of this text that we are constantly absorbing high-level cosmic energy through the melanin in our skin, arc welding it to our myelin, and directing it through our emotional states, well, how much untapped potential is just sitting dormant inside us?
Right.
Furthermore, how much of our vital energy are we just casually giving away when we interact with others, completely unaware of the powerful magnetic fields we are supposedly generating and exchanging every single day?
It's a total shift in perspective on what it means to be human. Just to quickly trace the massive journey this source material took us on today, it asks us to completely discard the idea of forcing our way into the stars using clunky technological monkey suits and exploding metal rockets.
Thank goodness.
Instead, it posits that the hardware we need is already built in. Our skin is a massive cosmic energy absorber, using the space gap between melanin and myelin to feed the cellular souls of our entire body.
It totally replaces the need for combustible rocket fuel with the immense, untapped power of human emotion combined with absolute biological symmetry. It suggests that disease is simply a failure of that internal energy network to match up, and that true healing and ultimately universal interstellar travel can be achieved by consciously directing that energy field.
And it doesn't just theorize, right? It leaves us with the practical tools to test the waters, moving energy deliberately from our toes to our brains, and practicing that 4-4-6-2 breathing technique to alter our lymph system and unlock the soul's latent capacity to travel the cosmos.
It is a framework that challenges you to look at your reflection and see every single cell in your body not merely as a biological building block, but as an individual address-posted energy center, fully capable of transmuting far beyond our current physical limits.
Which brings up one final lingering thought for you to mull over today. Something that builds directly on the strict rules established in this text. We spent a lot of time earlier discussing that mind-bending biological requirement that the total number of cells in your physical body absolutely must perfectly match the total number of cells in your blood circulation.
The 1-to-1 ratio, yeah.
Right. The text insists this flawless 1-to-1 mirror is mathematically necessary for the taxicab energy transfer that feeds the soul and ultimately allows for transmutation. But if that perfect biological symmetry is an absolute non-negotiable requirement for the system to work, what happens to that delicate mirror image when humanity starts introducing artificial matter state implants into our bodies?
Oh, wow.
What happens when we begin relying on synthetic organs or neural links or radical biological augmentations? By attempting to technologically upgrade our physical bodies, are we inadvertently adding physical matter that has no energetic match in the blood?
That is a terrifying thought.
Does our modern obsession with physically hacking our bodies actually permanently disrupt that perfect cell-to-blood ratio? It really begs the question, could our drive to become superhuman cyborgs actually destroy our inherent biological ability to act as universal travelers, effectively trapping our souls in this physical matter state dimension forever?
That is heavy.
Something for you to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Okay, that was long, but hopefully it was helpful. Any comments? And of course, the Creator loves us humans, and one of the knowledge seekers has just put this in for your observation and study. And it was their interpretation of what was being conveyed in this workshop. There's the 4-4-6-2 cycle of what he was talking about. Any comments on this anyone would like to make? But at least it'll be in the recording that others can see it. And again, that final hold for 2 seconds action, a final brief pause to bring balance before the next cycle. Here, the hold for 4 seconds after you've taken 4 counts in, the handover where energy is exchanged between physical and emotional states. The exhaling, again, very nice and very concise, and it's something we can study. Any comments from anyone? It's you who's going to have to pick it up, apply it, learn about it, and then become that traveler. And that's why I said I think governments have worked on this in the past. When Ben Rich, after he had left Skunk Works and gave that speech to the engineering graduates at UCLA, he said we had the ability to take ET home. And if he said at that time, he said, if you understand how ESP works, extrasensory perception, they referred to it as, you'll understand what I'm saying. And isn't this exactly what Mr. Keshe said about interacting in a way, creating new children with the universal community without any physicality, just through the interaction of fields? Maybe the gestation would take place in the womb of the mother, I'm not sure. But this is part of the idea, or maybe you don't need a womb at all. But he talked about creating this sort of immaculate conception. So again, beyond most of the science books, or all of the science books, except those who have sort of played with science fiction. But again, this is not science fiction. This is science fact. And it's just that humanity hasn't caught up with it. We're still in the sort of nursery school. Go ahead.
Comment.
Yes.
Yeah, I just noticed, or at least I thought I noticed, doesn't seem to mention humming, with the vibration for the sinus system is separate, but this is strictly something that we could actually pass around to people to do the breathing.
Right, and didn't he mention humming with monks as well in the previous workshops? I think there was a reference to
Yes,
humming,
I think
and
so.
monks making that sound. You know how they all gather and go om or something, whatever they sort of.
And ah, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, it
But
creates
he
that.
said the different sounds will have a different effect.
Yes. Yeah, this is how much we don't understand about ourselves and what we can do. But it's all, the Rolls Royce is there. We're just getting the key and trying to figure out where to put it in. And of course, you say, Mr. Keshe, he did teach about UFOs and all that for a number of years. And he said, I had to start that way because you're so physical. You wanted something to get into. You needed a craft because you couldn't imagine this dimension of energy that you're part of. So he started to teach with the UFOs, and then I think they decided that it was a bit too risky, even though the universal community was going to share some of these highways of magnetic gravitational fields that they sort of travel on. He ended up going a step further and laying that basis as a teaching to then move to our energy dimension. Understanding the way the creator moves. So thank you for this contribution. It's in this recording. If it can be shared, I think it's in the American Telegram, Keshe American Knowledge Team. You can find it there, and we'll spread it from there across. Thank you. Any other comments? So all of these are really big gifts for all of us to become that, so to speak, last man standing, where you can feed yourself, you can balance conditions of unwellness in your own structure, probably generate energies too, and certainly elevate other souls. And perhaps it's time now to go to the Dome of Peace, which we continually work on to creating on a daily basis. And as at the end of each workshop, you're invited to join the Universal Council and many, many others. And not only within the Keshe Foundation, but other locations that are wishing for peace. In the Keshe Foundation, we're taking a 9 p.m. Central European time, gathering together again on that mystical, esoteric energy dimension with the others, creating a bouquet, and then sending those energies to the soul of world leaders and religious leaders that they become enlightened and become more peaceful, and maybe even to the point of taking off the frock or not having such a desire for power and wealth, as many of the leaders do. And I know Mr. Keshe went explicitly into the American president and some of the things that were signed recently. And of course, this applies to every world leader. Many of the contracts, it's sort of the default position that 10% is reserved for world leaders and special accounts. So we're elevating their souls away from greed and sort of possessing into elevation, kindness, peacefulness, freedom, and the rest. So this is the process we do at 9 p.m. But as you'll hear, don't limit it to just 9 p.m. If that emotion rises up, you get a picture of a world leader in your mind, give to that world leader. So it's a two-step process. Again, a double core, if that is possible. As he said, we need to create this double core, but we're creating a double core here by using the physicality of the Gans waters, or the Gans, let's say, really the Gans waters, in twinity with the collective souls of all individuals who are taking place on this planet, or probably some across the universe as well. So this is the first step of creating the Dome of Peace. You're all welcome to join us on a regular basis. Again, it's not a daytime job. You can't really say, hey, I tried this last week and I don't see any change in my leader or my world leader. Again, it's not a day job. Souls are very low. They need a lot of elevation. And this is where you come in as a Messiah that you've learned to give from your own soul, which leads to elevation of others. And then, of course, you'll carry the same understanding across the universe of the exchange of fields. Again, I think that universe is right within your own structure. So let's hear how to do this. Again, you're all invited to participate on one part of it, on both parts of it, whatever you'd like to do. But there's no forcing anyone to participate in this process. You do it of your own volition. And as we see in China, they've been doing it for a decade or longer and still carrying forward this process. But now we're seeing quite a bit of results in China. And as he said, we're going to connect to all your Ganses and other Ganses around the world, probably when the cosmic ray antennas come into feature on the ONN network. So unfortunately, we didn't hear the announcements and we didn't play the new video, but I thought we'd spend some time on understanding our own structure a little bit more, which is mostly what these teachings are about. So this is the first step of creating the Dome of Peace, something for the physicality to do, creating a Gans. If you're not sure, we're using the water above the Gans. Go to the Keshe Foundation wiki and learn about this process of making or transmuting energies into a nano material, which appears as a solid in the matter state. So this is the first step. Thank you, Stefania, and thank you, Shweta. And we'll just take 1 minute and exercise this now.
I don't know if anyone wants to read this, Dome of Peace. Anyone want to offer?
I will
With a nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This from a guy, I don't know him, but he says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the gas waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
And again, jokingly, at one point, Mr. Keshe said, this is how you, and chuckled, how you take over a planet. So this is part, again, they're not taking it over by force or for nefarious reasons, but to bring us into a closer relationship with the universal community. And this is the, in a way, projects of universal teachers, that they see a civilization who has sort of lost its way and totally bound up in the matter state. Not every single person, but for the majority, and decided that they'd answer the calls to get us out of this killing and destructive mode that we've been in for quite some time. So that's the first step of the Dome of Peace. Go to Keshe Foundation Wiki, learn how to make a GANs. Again, this is the transmutation of fields, gravitating, carbon, and many other elements in that little box we call a reactor, with just a piece of nano-coated copper and some zinc. So now we'll go to the second step of the Dome of Peace, and this is where we start to play in the collective power of the soul sort of understanding. Again, physicality not involved in this particular process, so you can be releasing GANs waters at the same time you're elevating the soul of world leaders. Or you can be at your work or anything else, as this is something that happens on the energy side rather than the physical side. So if you're driving, coaching a team, whatever you're doing, you can take that nanosecond or longer and add to the collectiveness of it. And again, we're joining collectively at 9 p.m., but you can also do it often as you'd like. Again, understanding and exploring this energy dimension before the final bell or the final call is probably advisable. As we've heard, if you wait till that point, you're going to have a lot to learn and a lot to understand. So here's the second step of the Dome of Peace, power of the souls.
Anybody wants to read the Dome of Peace? I mean, beautiful souls. Anyone? Here? Okay. I'll read this beautiful presentation of Dome of Peace. And the Dome of Peace is already here. All the knowledge seekers, truth seekers, lovers of humanity has built it in a way, spreading the GANs, loving each other as shareholders. So I will read this as please remember, every Sunday from now on until we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet, Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the GANs waters around the world at 12 p.m. CET and or at 18 p.m. CET every Sunday at the same time, as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for the participation in this greatest movement by the soul of man to bring about the peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Mr. Keshe suggests we add the next step to create the Dome of Peace with power of the souls, as we have already going through this with the 2 eyes. And we ask you to spread the GANs waters each Sunday. Now we give you a new path. Now try to unite each other's souls. Try to elevate the souls of humanity, soul of humanity, through your own soul to a level that no one can touch, the embodiment of the human race. So beautiful. Choose a time where all of you come together on the soul level in a state of inner calmness. At that time, don't spread the water of GANs, but spread your soul. Unite, and in time, we will make a new race out of the soul of man. And then, instead of doing it once a week, do it all the time. M. Keshe.
Okay, thank you. Before we actually take a minute, or you could just take a nanosecond of your life to do this, I think we're going to go back to the workshop. There was something around 154, I believe. And this is where Azar was asking a certain question. Let's see if we can zero in on this perhaps. And then we'll just take a few minutes where Mr. Keshe goes on. She was asking about peace and creation of peace, I believe.
This, can you help us? You have the knowledge, can you join us? You can support us financially, can you help us to bring there? You can support us through your connections, that you can make it easier for us to work. We gave it free, they tested it, and now they're putting it back in. Emotion and what we call the yearn, the emotion of trying to achieve, always succeeds.
Sorry, I think this is where Azar, I believe, comes in here. But what did he say about the emotion to succeed is always, or the emotion to achieve? Let's see. You can support us financially. So when we're doing some of these exercises, emotion and what we call the yearn emotion of trying to achieve always succeeds. So you sort of want it. You want to bring whatever you want to bring and create that emotion. But by just wanting it, you will achieve it. This yearning emotion of trying to achieve always succeeds. It may not be the first or second time, as we've seen with number of testing and other things. But let's focus on what Azar said about this piece. And maybe we'll listen to 5 minutes of it, and then we'll take 60 seconds and generate this, and then we'll go to Alex's teaching.
Just talking about peace, isn't it time to give this energy thing to bring it? I mean, I was actually got some color painting, and then I was making a diagram of all the wires and how you can make the energy with maglev, like infinite energy with almost nothing. But then when I look at how many people are dying in Middle East, from both sides, isn't it time to just give this?
No,
but
you see, Azarja, there is a thing where the Jews in the Torah. Sometime I was discussing this with some high-ranking officials, why Israel is doing and how they're planning, and what Chinese said. If one nuclear bomb happens in Iran, there'll be no state of Israel. It's a warning coming directly from the CPC and the military of China. It means they're going to go. But you have to understand how these people think. From last Monday till the 2nd of August is the time, according to Jewish prophecy, the war has to start to finish in the benefit of the Israel, and then the Jews by the October will not exist.
And just to give a bit of a background, Mr. Keshe said this is not, this is a religious conflict, what we're seeing in a way between Iran and it's sort of competing factions. One wants to bring a Messiah, the other one wants to bring a Mahdi. And this is what he's referring to about this window that they need to fulfill according to their prophecy, apparently. Mr. Keshe has a much deeper understanding of this. Again, we just see it as dropping bombs, but there's something behind all this, and this is what he's explaining here.
And that's what they're trying. That's why everything was done this way. And by next Sunday, 2nd of August, this cycle passes. If the Jews do not create a third world war to bring the nation of Iran to an end, they lose their window of Messiah to come. You have to understand a lot of things when you speak about Iran. Americans have spent approximately $30 to $35 billion on equipment, bombs, and losses. Americans have signed 2.5 trillion contracts, arms, defense, in the same period with the nations in the Middle East. Has been 100 times more profitable to keep this war going. Trump family has made over 250 billion in this war. They spent 30 billion. They have received 2.5 trillion contracts. Now you understand why the war is going on.
I mean, these nations are so stupid.
It's what it is. This has been one of the most profitable wars for the American industry. And all the ones which made money in it are the ones which Trump has bought shares in it and then keeps on announcing why it is. But Lockheed Martin, Mr. Smart Guy, and everybody else. No war. How can you invest 30 million, maybe a few thousand lives of Americans, and make 2.5 trillion? It's in the public. Go and see how many contracts they've signed and they're still signing. All signed by what do you call it, the Trump's family. You think they care about life? But we take life. But this philosophy, this prophecy that he has to complete by 2nd of August is on the card. And that's why they're trying to push the war in the next 10 days. If they miss this chance, the Messiah will not come for the Jews in October. Even if it means the last day on the 2nd of August, they use a nuclear bomb on Iran, they will do, because they work on this philosophy of what we call. And then we see nothing will happen in October. They're working on windows, and that's why they started the heavy bombing in past 7, 8, 10 days, because they need this window. They're fulfilling their process.
So what's going to happen if nothing happens by August 2nd? It means they're going to die?
We wait and see. No, it's the prophecy of the end of Judaism and the coming of Messiah. They are working this. You have to see the Iranians work on the reverse of this, and the Jews work on the other reverse side. If you listen to the Iranian forces, they call it the forces of Mehdi has come into operation. They're defending. This is how ridiculous. People don't listen, you just pass it on. They just, because you're not aware of what's going on. But we watch, we monitor.
But Mr. Keshe, they
Okay, so we can see what we need to do. So let's just go back to this Dome of Peace, and we'll take 1 minute. I'll bring up this little energy sort of transfer video I made. And you can see that the world leaders are topped up, but not quite as topped up as they should be. So let's take 60 seconds of our time, just run through this process. Again, generating those cosmic ray fields, the way you created plasma balls between your two hands, and let's send these to the soul of the world leaders. And any others you may want to include in this process, maybe some books of wisdom or books of meditation that they can calmly resolve this process, but it's something behind what we're seeing in the news, as Mr. Keshe has just pointed out. It's not a fight to win, it's a fight to whose Messiah will be revealed and some other prophecies that need to be fulfilled. If you go back, you can see that Trump, the son-in-law, and others are playing different roles in this sort of manifestation of what they're trying to achieve here. So let's just take 60 seconds. We'll start now. This is just something that shows a kind of a transfer of fields. Again, this was just recorded on some device I was charging. We'll start now. Combination of fields. Thank you all for your continued participation in this process. And we're learning to operate in the energy dimension on the line of the creator, which is much, 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 much more effective than trying to work through the physicality to make the changes. And this is the energy dimension we're sort of referring to that we've not been aware of, and we're being made step by step. And there's much more. As he said, there's more to teach on this, as I think every topic has just basically scratched the surface. So find out what you can do, be part of the process of bringing the change, awake the collective awareness of people who wish for peace, and ask them to join us at this time and create that energy that we'll see it manifest in the physicality. As he said, the soul may pick up some of these energies, decide to change a dimension within the dimension of physicality of that particular world leader. So again, a very precious process, and we're humbled to be able to try and perform it. But as he said, you bring that intention and bring that wish and that yearning to succeed, it will succeed. It may not be tomorrow. As he said, this is not a day job. So if you're faint of heart, we need a little bit stronger heart there, because this is not something that'll may last even a generation or more. But we're moving in the correct direction. Okay, I think it's time for Alex's teaching here. And we'll bring up his presentation. This is called Scoric Marrow. Again, for some reason, it doesn't quite fit in. I think we need a change of size. I don't actually know how to do that. So we'll have to watch it maybe in this manner. Maybe I can bring up something darker in the background that may help. This could be something here. Let's see if this works out any better. Not really, but let's spend time. Any comments or questions anybody would like to bring about what we've shared today, what we've seen? We haven't seen the new video of the coin, but that is in the 652nd Knowledge Seekers Workshop. I don't think there's any individual copies that'll probably put in the various positions when the time it'll be delivered right on time for everyone to share it, but you can share it within this workshop. So unfortunately, Alex is not here, but he's here in the dimension of energy, and he's also sent a video for us to understand Scoric Marrow. So here we go. Feel free to share anything at this point. Anyone? Okay, so we'll go through this part of the teaching. Again, there's so much in this, every single workshop, but again, it's for you to open it up and understand it for yourselves. And of course, we share our own understanding of what we're understanding. So maybe people will feel free to share in the next workshop as well if they've started to try to move this energy. I certainly know that I did feel energy between the hands. Maybe it was just the reflective heat again, but I think we can feel that pressure if you create a plasma ball and you can actually send it. Again, this is something that I thought was sort of science fiction in a way, but never understood how my own structure is actually. I thought that was great what we just heard. You're walking around with kind of solar panels in a way, but they're not solar panels for the sun, not only the sun, but the solar panels for the cosmic rays of the universe. So this is how beautifully you're constructed, and yet how beautifully it's been hidden from us for some reason. Here we go. Thank you, Alex, again, and look forward to your quick return.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026. And let's do the disclaimer.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
And thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026. And let's enjoy the trip. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science. We are discussing the intermediate matter tech. Subject today is marrow. My name is Alexander. I'm from Canada. It is July the 26th of 2026. This is part of the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So as we continue in this series, we were trying to make sure that all the new students can keep up and join in, and we do need to keep moving forward. And this is a continuation on this series. We started with the Lord of the Rings, plantation, screwworms. Last week was capillaries. This week is the marrow. And there's a common theme that is running through this whole thing is the rings of duality. That we understand that we have double fields that are each a maggrav, but one consists of a magnetical relationship and one consists of a gravitational relationship. And so this duality is prevalent in everything that we talk about. Even when we talk about the cosmic egg rings, you know, we reference the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit of the Rings. And so obviously there are two factions here. And there's the point where the flow of time-space turns towards the opposite pole. And this is what facilitates not only the manifestation of the rings, but also motion. And motion is part of what we see in the universe without motors. So when we reference the Lord of the density, it's important to review that gravity seeks density, and density operates within the Coulomb barrier. A maggrav is constantly in balance, but there's a duality. We're looking at concentric rings and spirals. So we reviewed last week the surface to volume ratio. And when we looked at the ratio between the two, we found that the surface was much larger in relationship to the volume, and that the smaller the volume, the higher the ratio. And so we find that if we have the four squares and the surface of them is 8:4 or 2:1, by reducing the size, it increases the charge. And so this is fundamental to understanding which way energy flows. And that's going to be another topic of discussion today, because let's remember the example of the area of a circle. The area equals pi times r squared, where r is the radius. And if the radius equals 1, then 1 times 1 is solving as 1. If we double the radius, then 2 times 2 solves as 4. And if we double that again, then 4 times 4 solves as 16. So we see that the ratio increases with the radius. So since gravity seeks density, the smaller circle is gravitational, where the radius is the smallest, and the larger circle is magnetical. But when we look at refraction in physics, the change in direction of a wave passing from one medium to another is affecting the change in speed. So when a wave travels faster in deep water than in shallow water. And so we see a range of frequencies. So what is interesting is that when we look at the light and we measure it in frequencies, there's a relationship between the wavelength and the frequency. And so as the wavelength decreases, the frequency increases. And then if we look at the rainbow, and when we look at the reflection of the rainbow, the curvature of the rainbow opposed to the curvature of the other rainbow is not normal. They are both curved in the same direction. But what's important here is to understand that the blue is on the inside of the curve. So if we just reflect that, we do get the blue on the inside of the curve. But the reality is that the rainbow curves in both directions, but the color does change. So in that case, we find this frequency anomaly where the radius and the curvature of the sphere makes it where the larger circle is slower in the red zone and the smaller circle is faster in the blue. But the higher frequency is magnetical and the lower frequency is gravitational. So now we have an anomaly. And so when we look at the principal matter, we see the PM ticks and they're magnetical because they're very tiny. They're energy packs and they're diverging all over the universe. But when they come together as the antimatter, dark matter, and matter gen, they converge and convert into a plasma gen. This plasma gen is gravitational. But when we take the maggrav condition of the Earth space, it too is gravitational. So the relationship between the Earth maggrav and the plasmagen maggrav is that the Earth is gravitational, the plasmagen is magnetical, and the combination of those two fields is the field interaction which we call inertia. So when we see these coming together, these forces, we see the inertia manifestation, and this is regardless of time and distance. It's true throughout the universe. And so we see these concentric circles and these spirals, and they overlap. So there are the first example of duality. And that leads us to this vacuum theory failure. We say the vacuum is actually full of principal matter. And this principal matter is like a charge, and that charge is in motion. And it always goes towards the negative charge. The negative charge is the giver. And this is what is confounding to a lot of people who are studying physics, is that in reality, what we see is the product, but what is causing the motion is the surface to volume ratio. So the higher the ratio, the higher the negative charge. The negative is what gives, and the positive is what takes. And so the difference really is where energy can be flowing or energy can be binding. So the flowing energy is magnetical and the binding energy is gravitational, and that is the point. So when we look at an energy parceling unit and, for example, water, that is a combination of two hydrogens and a big fat oxygen. So the hydrogens are magnetical and the oxygen is gravitational. But how do we balance this energy? because the Magritte condition of a water droplet is round, and it doesn't seem to be very fair. And then when we use water as the universal solvent, the hydrogen itself gets sheared off, and we're left with a hydroxyl. Now, the net hydroxyl energy is negative because it's lost some energy. Energy is always positive. So energy is a charge in motion, and energy is always in motion. So this duality is prevalent in everything that we look at, and things seem to always flip around. We see the same thing in our education, where we constantly reference lords and gods. And we see that lords are in plural, gods are in plural. And for example, we have Aphrodite and Zeus, and then they have the chariots of the gods. And so they're going to need big parking lots for these chariots because there's more than one. But this duality that we talk about as a raindrop, it actually acts as a beacon, and it always hits the target. And when the raindrop hits the surface of the water, it creates waves, and the waves go up and the waves go down, and they make concentric circles, and the circles get larger and larger. So the larger circles are magnetical, and the initial circle is gravitational. And so that magnetical strength is imparted through its gravitationally inherent picocore. But then, when we look at a tuning fork, it also has this waveform, but it imparts these external forces without physical contact. There's an environmental interaction. And so we see the waves in duality, where the waves are emitted from the tuning fork and the waves are imparted into the surface of the water. And again, we see the concentric circles. And so the larger circles are magnetical, and the core circles are gravitational. And so our understanding of our relationship with Earth is with frequencies. But we're only seeing half the picture because the transmission highway is carbon-12. It's the transition highway which starts to expose the reality, where we have carbon-14 and carbon-10, and the total of which is 24. So to understand that gravity seeks density, and carbon-14 is more dense than the carbon-10, and so the carbon-14 would be gravitational, and carbon-10 would be magnetical. And then when we elevate to the transmutation highway, carbon-16 and carbon-8 also comes a total of carbon-24. But the carbon-16 would be gravitational, and the carbon-8 would be magnetical. And so the relationship between the transmutation highway and the transition highway is that the carbon-16 would be gravitational, and carbon-14 would be magnetical. And then we see that the carbon-12 is missing something, and it's actually missing the other half of the equation. And so then, how come the carbon-12 and the transmission highway is gravitational? And that is the duality anomaly. So as we continue to investigate, we have to investigate the anomaly of contraction. You see, lungs will expand and then lungs will contract. But that is opposite to what muscles do. Muscles tighten and then muscles relax. And fists will clench and fists will open. What fists cannot do is not open. So growth in itself can only grow. You cannot not do something, and not doesn't work. And that is where we have this other anomaly with the Ten Commandments. And of course, they're also short another 14 commandments for a total of 24. And so we have this convergence in commandment number 1, where I am the Lord your God, in singularity. And most of the other commandments, they tell you, thou shalt not do this. And since not doesn't work, we don't hear the not. So it actually encourages to do all these things, lying, cheating, stealing. And of course, we become weak and we have faults and failings. That's why we're called fallen angels. We're falling through weakness. And in that process, we increase our density, increase our pressure, and increase our gravity. Overall, we increase our dependence on Earth space feeding. Let's remember that. And it's balanced off by the internal pressure of the gas fields. So the angular momentum is conserved. That is the reality. So what happens in confrontations? So this duality we actually see as a dual, where energy manifests as a friction and fists manifest into fighting. This causes a division of society through a racism, and we wonder if a chronic liar would actually believe you. All this coming together is a manifestation, what we call inertia density. But we need to be polite. So, gentlemen, shake hands and then come out fighting, and you fight over the energy binding, self serving needs. That's your dimension point. That singularity of me, myself, and I. And then, therefore, that excludes everybody else because that me, myself, and I is at the expense of others. But the others have the same desire. So either they rebel or they run away. Either way, those who get robbed are loose leakers. The anomaly is that those who do the robbing are also loose leakers. So we need some kind of vitality, capacity enhancement to come forward, because we do have a capacity and we do have an enhancement, but it's running low and it needs to be topped up. The emotional and physicality cannot be topped up with the regular. It needs the supercharging. And so that supercharging comes when we get outside of the old science box and get into the plasma science, where we see that instead of doubling our energy, we increase it by orders of magnitude. And we find that when we understand that the smaller it gets, the higher it has, the higher ratio, the higher the negative charge, then we find that the nano is 3 orders of magnitude higher, and the pico is another 3 orders of magnitude higher. And we demonstrated this in Beijing, where the 2025 gold rush began. And this year, we started off with the silver rush, and now there is a rare element rush all over the place. And so this demonstrated the picoatomic state, which is beyond the nano-monatomic state. Just like a raindrop, it's a beacon that transmits this gravitationally inherent field strength into an emission array. And where does it stem from? That nebulous blurry point in the nano gap. So we have to question, is the point or the gap more important? And so here we are trying to learn the teachings of Merentavakoli Keshe through book number 1, The Universal Order of Creation of Matter, where we bring together this antimatter, dark matter, and matter state. But that's in singularity. In book number 2, The Structure of the Light, shows this duality and the connection between. So the structure of the light has to have this matter state, and the connection between two matter states also exists. So we see the creation of these 3 positions. But the first 2 positions then when they manifest in book number 3, The Origin of the Universe, that field splits up and cells do the same thing. So the universe consists of man's universe and their sister universe. And we ignore the sister universe. That's perfectly normal. We're ignoring our own universe. We're just concerned with that tiny little gravitational field, which we call Earth space. And there's an even tinier gravitational field, which we call our modern caves, the condominiums. And so what we've been trying for 440 weeks with the members of a Universal Council hosted by Rick Crammond is to bring one planet, one nation, one race for justice and world peace together in understanding that we are just a drop on the drop on the drop of the universe, and that there are others. As we have many races, the Universal Council has many races. So those are not being recognized. We are only in a carbon-12 transmission zone. We need to elevate into our duality. So that duality follows the plasma rule, where the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. So these two fields come together in a transaction zone. And most of the time we choose a conflict point. But we have to understand that that is a binding zone. So whether you're fighting or whether you're coming together, it's an inertia density manifestation, and density being the key. So there are sequences to follow. So understanding that the gravitational is part of the attraction, and therefore it is the feedback. It's the magnetical repulsion, which is part of the feeding. And you are the last man standing with your choices. You don't want to abdicate that. You have control to turn on and turn off that feeding, increase or decrease the strength, enhance or diminish your positioning. So the stronger does feed the weaker. And so what we've been able to achieve is to capture that field, that physical field, because we were determined to seek rock solid evidence. And that reality bullseye was our Earth space. But how did we get there? We had to understand that we had a sentimentality for that little piece of pie in the sky, and we had to decide where it was. And it was not Venus, and it was not Mars. So it was Earth. And so we arrived there. Well, who has the authority to deny our access? So when we look at the relationship between our Earth space and the rest of the universe, we know that the sun is up and our boots are on the ground. And regardless of where we are on this tiny sphere, we're not upside down, we're not down under, and we're not on the ceiling. We're very well stable. But we look at our cellular structure, and it has concentric rings. But there are overlapping spiral rings, because from the nucleus, the picocore of the cellular cells, there's a magnetical casting out. So somehow there has to be an intake of nutrition and an casting out of waste. And so this is an ongoing process, which brings us to the capillaries, because these are the body's microscopic blood vessels, and they connect small arteries to small veins, and they form a vast network to nearly every tissue. And their purpose was to transport oxygen. This is an iron-rich protein that binds to oxygen in the lungs and releases it as it travels through the body's capillaries. And this is where the hemoglobin folds over and the oxygen gets sheared, just like a sheep. And this is important because our existence on this planet is oxygen dependent. We are aerobic. The interesting thing about capillary action is it's a natural process where the liquid flows through a narrow space or porous material, and it does this against gravity. So we have a confusion in terminology. When we talk about narrow, we often talk about the straight and narrow. And it's not used properly in our English language because the origin of it has to do with the Marines. A strait is a naturally formed waterway connecting two larger bodies of water, such as an ocean and a sea. And because they create concentrated shipping channels, straits are historically and economically critical for international trade, defense, and maritime transportation. And this is a very hot topic and at this time. And so the straight and the narrow refers to this body of water. But our subject is marrow. And it has a figurative reference, the core or the essence. It refers to the choicest, deepest, or most essential part of a concept, idea, or experience. But our topic today focuses on bone marrow, that soft, spongy, fatty tissue inside your bones that is responsible for producing blood cells. These are red, white, and platelets. So the bone marrow sits in the hollow centers of your bone. It contains stem cells that develop into crucial components of your blood and immune system. So as we understand bones, we see that there are horns, skulls, and skeletons. Well, we don't have all three. We just have skeletons. And those skeletons include the skull and the body, and they're all contained within. But there are organisms on this planet that have exoskeletons. And then these exoskeletons are carried by the owner. And they are in a spiral formation. But interestingly enough, that some actually have spikes on top of this spiral formation. So you can clearly see that there are overlapping rings. And the spikes are in concentric rings, and they come to a point, whereas the exoskeleton is in a spiral form. So we see this duality. But when we look at the structure, if we understand that we in our skeletons are missing our horns, because the horns are actually the skeletons outside of the body, but if we understand the magnetical gravitational relationship, and then we can see that our spine is like a stacker system. And remember, the stacker system is 5 cups. The cup of the soul, the cup of emotion, the cup of physicality, the cup of inertia, and the cup of the earth. And when we look at nerves, the nervous system, and the structure of the axion, we see that the head is round and the dendrites come to points where they have the high surface to volume ratio. So the emission along the nerves is given from the negative to the next nerve, going from the tail to the head. But along the way, we have the axon. And what is interesting is that the myelin sheath revolves around the axon. And as it revolves in a spiral formation, it increases the capacity of the physical memory. And so we have this memory in our mobility, whether we play sports or we play the piano, or whether we just do common functions like walking or driving or working. The more we do it, we call it practice, the better we get. So there is a relationship in the body skeleton that we have to address. The torso is gravitational. The limbs are magnetical based on surface to volume ratio. And so you can see how the arms, when they extend from the torso, the shoulders are bigger than the upper arm, and the lower arm is smaller, and the tips of the fingers are smaller still. The legs have the same thing, all the way from the hips down to the toes. So when you look at the limb skeletons, the thigh is bigger than the lower part of the leg, and the upper part of the arm is bigger than the lower part of the arm. So they function the same way. They're part of the limbs. But really and truly, in relationship, the legs are gravitational and the limbs are magnetical based on surface to volume ratios. But individually in the limbs, this flips around. The thigh bone is the production kitchen. It's highly gravitational. So what's going on in the thigh bone? The thigh bone consists of the most important marrow in the body. It is the biggest bone. And in there are stem cells. They're produced. They are unspecialized foundational cells with a unique ability to divide, self-renew, and develop into various specialized cell types. They serve as the body's repair system. The primary categories include embryonic stem cells, which are pluripotent, that is, they're capable of becoming any cell, and adult stem cells, they're multipotent, but they're restricted to specific tissues like bone marrow, and that's why they are studied so extensively. The products are referred to as blood cells, and a human cannot live without bone marrow. It is essential for survival because the bone marrow contains hematopoietic stem cells that act as the body's factory for three critical blood components. So we have the red blood cells that deliver that oxygen from your lungs to the rest of the body. And then we have the white blood cells that protect the body from the infections and disease. And then we have the platelets, which control bleeding by helping blood clot. Without this functional marrow, your body relies on medical treatments to replace these life-sustaining cells. We talked about the nerves and the myelin sheath, but there are two parts of the nervous system, and they come together as the autonomous nervous system. So let us remember that the autonomous nervous system is the inertia field of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. These are the two opposing branches of the autonomic nervous system. but they work together to maintain bodily homeostasis. The sympathetic nervous system drives the fight or flight response to stress, while the parasympathetic system directs the rest and digest state. So can you decide which one is magnetical or which one is gravitational? Since the fight or flight system is part of the feedback, then the sympathetic autonomous system is gravitational. The parasympathetic is part of the feeding, it's part of the magnetical. And the two come together because they create this cellular inertia based on emotion. And it comes down to that kitchen in the thigh bone into the marrow. And there we produce a unique product called calcium. And calcium has its own anomalies. It is the most abundant mineral in the body, vital for building strong bones and teeth, enabling muscle contractions, and regulating nerve functions, and blood clotting, and your body stores 99% of its calcium in the bones, while the remainder circulates in the blood and the fluids. But in the 651st Knowledge Seekers Workshop, we discovered some of the anomalies of calcium. Yes, calcium is part of the bone structure, but it's also part of the cartilage, and that's more flexible. It is part of our fluids, that's very fluid, but it's also part of the brain. And so we find that the calcium itself is radioactive. It plays a fundamental role on Earth and not in space. It has to do with the inertia and gravity fields of the plasma of the center of the Earth. It's at the center of every cell in the body. And on this planet, it is calcium. But another planet, it could be lead, aluminum, or an element we don't know. We are a calcium-based planet. But remember that oxygen is gravitational. And remember that we are organic, based on carbon. So the bones are made from a mixture of calcium and potassium, which have a common denominator field strength in the vacuum condition of the plasma of the body. So we have an external plasma outside of the Earth's magnetosphere, and we have another vacuum condition in the center of the body. And the calcium behaves radioactive. Now we understand the folding deviation of this amino acid star formation and the difference between the solar system, how it delivers the basic elements, but the human body has the additional one in calcium. And then calcium for the human body has a balance, which has to do with magnesium. Now, plants, on the other hand, when they create a structure of rigidity, they depend more on magnesium than on calcium. But they have a skeleton as well, which is why they bend in the wind and don't break. Let's discuss arthritis for a moment. This is a general term for over 100 conditions that cause inflammation, pain, and stiffness in one or more joints. And the most common type is osteoarthritis, which is a breakdown of joint cartilage, and rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disorder. Basically, the calcium is misplaced. Instead of being manufactured and placed in the bones, it is placed on the bones. And osteoporosis is a silent bone disease characterized by decreased bone mass and structural deterioration. It makes bones thin and brittle, significantly increasing the risk of fractures from minor bumps or falls, most commonly in the hip, spine, and wrist. Why? Because the calcium is removed. And so if you remember the creatures with the exoskeleton, their skeletons are hard. But if you take out the calcium, they will become very porous, and that would be fatal to the creature that's inside. So what we are seeing is that the functioning of the marrow is not only very important for existence on this planet, but within the marrow there is this plasma bridge which connects the emotional content of the blood, consisting of red blood and the white blood. And there is a manifestation, a transition. Already we have a transition in the brain because calcium is part of the brain food. There is no blood in the brain. It's all calcium. And so the brain itself can be considered a bone, but a very spongy bone and very reactive. You can make an idea or give an idea. So energy is the medium. And when you strip the oxygen in the capillaries, it affects the potentiation of hydrogen. And so in the alkalinity, we can increase the tension. In a healthy cell, we balance the tension, but in an acidic cell, we relax the tension. And so what we find is that this modulates the DNA, where we go from the healthy, which is aerobic, to the unhealthy, which is anaerobic. And the dead, well, actually, you become the food for the anaerobic bacteria. You become recycled organic material. So to maintain this cellular stability, there has to be a balance of the gravitational neutron interaction and the out-density interaction. And so we see that there is a convergence in its design with the phospholipids of the concentric circles and with the metabolism of the spiral formation. So not only is there a duality in the structure, but there's a duality in the energy transfer system. And so as we saw with the screw duality, the DNA is a double helix with overlapping dual spirals. And the RNA is also a double helix. And so the relationship there is a matter state to plasma state transitioning. And that's the duality that we have to understand, because we have embedded inherent frequencies. The soul and the soul of physicality threshold requires that blur fill that allows us to always transition, because each one always hits the bullseye. But we have to make a stronger connection. So we have to bridge that gap. And are you ready to break on through and understand the duality? We taught that in the cups of life, where the cup of emotion was magnetical and the cup of physicality was gravitational. But the two came together and created the Magrive condition of the cup of man. So this plasma matter dilemma sees us where we have the physicality of the atomic state, the nanostate, and the GAN state, each one of which is balanced and each one of which can transition. But the plasma state, which supports it, is also balanced, but it too can transition through this Magrive energy transfer state. So the cup of the universe, via the brain, connects that physicality of our skeleton to the universe through the emotion. And so we have the duality of the brain. They're different. We have the emotional, physical, and the carbogen connection. But is it symmetry or is it a reflection? And in which direction does it go? Does it go across or up and down? Well, there's a connection, and that connection is the emotion of love. So our connection to the universe is magnetical, and our connection to the earth is gravitational. And in that process, we have had to rely on a supplementation due to consumption. And this has become an acquired knowledge from a conditional teaching by ancient teachers. But the unconditional teaching by the Creator shows what's going on in the marrow of our bones, because we can create and recreate. And so this throws a new awareness that we have a bridge to cross. That gap of a 20% shortfall, that's the historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting. So they say, as above, so below. Well, heaven is the stronger field, isn't it? And earth is the weaker field, isn't it? But on earth, so earth is out, and as it is in heaven, the heaven is in. So the heaven is definitely gravitational. But to break on through, we are not fallen angels, we are pioneering angels, and we've arrived. And each of us has a pathway, and we have to enter it at our own risk to understand that as we are pioneering America, we wonder if it's a reflection or an illusion. And do we understand the language of love? Even Aphrodite sometimes is two-faced. But there's an above and there's a below. And we see that in the carbon inertia highways, because as we can transition from the transmission to the transmutation, there is a substructure. And that substructure has a substructure. There's always a balance. Even the cosmic rays have a balance. And so now when we look at the structure, we see the overlapping fields. We see the spirals and we see the concentric rings and we see the direction of flow where gravitational is feeding the magnetical and the magnetical is the giver. So there's a susceptibility that's inherent in our singularity. We saw that when we produced the gold, but there's an inherent susceptibility in duality when you bring the two fields together. And that inertia field is the gravitational completion. It requires an external input of the Gans field of humanity. We are the X factor that turns that Gans into gold. So when we're measuring things, we have to understand that there's a counterweight. The physicality is measured in weight, and the atomic state is measured in mass. But that's only part of the gravitational part. The nuclear state is in Teslas, and the plasma state is by time. And that's part of the magnetical component. And so there is always a balance between these two, and we see that coming together in the plasma. And there are no two plasmas together. No two plasmas the same, just like bagels. To create this magrav, it's a plasmatic manifestation. But then there's a dimension array point that comes to that environment. And to achieve that physical manifestation is the coming together of these force fields. And that magrav is that transaction zone with the energy at the core. And the gravitational certainty is achieved with the oxygen. And so the oxygen is a non-visible gas, but it does give us a visible emission spectrum, that fingerprint that shows the plasmatic decay to GANs and how GANs can decay from gas to liquid to solid. And we achieve this physical anchorage on this planet. So we have inherent attributes that give us this gravitational confirmation. It comes from that gravitational center point, that picocore, gives us that gravitational certainty of mutually assured construction. But at the same time, we demonstrated 129 Tesla in that gravitational realm, and it demonstrated the magnetical certainty. So that duality is what's leading us into that uncharted territory to understand that we are an array within an array, and there are many stars beyond the nanomonatomic state covering the full range from decay to radiation. And so when we talk about AI, that's the ancestral intelligence, where we are the technology and we are the inertial product, and we are the image of our dimensional convergence point. So when we're referring to the man, the myth, and the legend, this timelessness is in our own mind, or is it in the Sumerian texts? And that would be the difference between the plasma science, the physical science, and the pseudoscience. So we need to shine a light on this, because we see that there are anomalies like Agartha, which is an immense legendary kingdom said to be on the Earth's inner surface, sometimes involving a king of the world or multiple kings who are said to rule it and secretly influence events on the surface world. It's considered a modern esoteric concept from the 19th and 20th centuries, popularized through Western occultism, science fiction, and of course, Hollow Earth myths. So we're getting to the marrow, this energy portability, where we can modulate through state transition. One way is elevation, taking the physical matter state to the energy state. The other way is inertia, taking the energy state to the physical matter state. So the elevation involves expansion, but the physical manifestation involves contraction. So we are seeking that greater oneness for 652 knowledge seeker workshops in a row to suddenly transcend the limitations of nuclear science. But we are going beyond, because we have achieved the pico core of truth, and the communication has to be manifest through the various research centers that are being set up around the world. The scientific rescue is coming to open the blinds, one nation network at a time. And that time is now, because there's a racism, a space racism, that separates science fact and puts it in conflict with science fiction. There are universal councils. Some are earthbound, some are spacebound. And when we look at space, we see world rulers versus world leaders, warmongers versus peacemongers. How do we rationalize the hand that kills versus the hand that caresses? So we have to overcome that compassion racism burden and that capacities racism burden. Our mission is to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone, that no one is left out and no one is abused to the lack of knowledge. So help us achieve this goal. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, teaching some plasma science, welcoming all the beautiful plasma travelers of the carbon nations, learning about the new frequencies of the new organic plasma science. That World Peace Treaty is something you choose. You have to sign it unconditionally and mean it sincerely. See, the matter tech dominates our seed core manifestation, and there's a man-made margin between the war dome and the peace dome. So is the inertia of present governed by the dimensions of history, or is it time to learn the history of self in a universal context? The physical Magrath state has a limited marginal strength capacity. We need to increase that. The calcium is seated in the transition state plasma marrow. And this manifests into the transfer fields of physical matter state inertia conditions. The plasma science needs to continue to be enhanced daily via the Peace Dome in a practical exchange for peace on Earth. Please remember that these are basic teachings. We have so much more to learn, so welcome to the new golden outer space age. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed the trip.
Sorry, I couldn't find my microphone right away. It was at the bottom of the screen on another screen. So thank you, Alex, quite deep. Thank you for sharing your understanding. And again, this is a highly complex, highly simple, but yet highly complex structure you're going into. And I'm sure many of these points can be discussed for weeks and months into the future. Or if you were here, I'm sure we'd have a more lively discussion. But let's open it up. If anyone has a comment or a question, maybe Alex will listen in and answer it next week for you, since he's not here, and it's quite a deep understanding and many, many points being discussed. So thank you again, Alex. Any comments from our participants? And if we don't have any comments, I'm going to play the number 6 Keshe Coin video, then the final disclaimer. The session will come to an end. Again, anyone? Okay. Let's play the 6th installment of I guess there's 5, and last Thursday we saw the 6th installment. Thank you for those creating these videos. And each one apparently has a bit of a different reflection. Some sort of show the family, others show what it is to get old, others for the birth of a new child. Let's take a look at this, because this coin, which is part of the center work of the foundation, will become the effort of the man in the future time, as people start to realize that how far this coin can actually sort of meet the needs of the physicality, so the mind can be free to explore the depths of the universe as I understand it. So I think we'll do that. We'll play the final disclaimer. Session will come to an end. Any comments, thoughts, or suggestions to Alex? All right then. Let's see the latest installment of the Keshe video. And again, these will probably be on some of the social medias in the future. Everything is getting tested in a way. The ONNs are going out for tests. The coins are being released for tests. So we'll be patient until, again, if you look on the Game of Peace and Enlightenment, you'll see there's a spot for a Keshe coin. If you're signed up and a member of the association, you may see a coin or a part of a coin appear there, again for tests, but I believe you'll be able to order. I'm not actually sure, but this needs to be perfected so that more and more can be released and more ONNs can be perfected and released. So this is the latest of the coin video. Let's enjoy this and see, as Mr. Keshe said, even with the ONNs, there's nothing we have to do, just plug it in. If you need to add another part, a cosmic ray antenna in the future, that will come as well. And if I had the store up, apparently I can't link to it right now. You would see the offers for the ONN and some of the other things there. There's an actual wallet in there and so on. But as he said, give us time to work all these things out. Continue to play if you're signed up. We've put a couple of links in the chat where you can join our club or our association, which each country will have its separate association, but then all those individual associations will be linked up. And but it's not just playing the game. You have to actually sign the World Peace Treaty. And down the road, Mr. Keshe gave a very nice example of those. Perhaps you have a husband or a wife or a lover who didn't like the Keshe Foundation. You can say, would you like to receive some Keshe coin just by signing up? Again, a very small donation on our end is matched by a very large gift on the side of the foundation. So take it as you will. Hopefully you sign up, join us to bring the peace and more interaction with the universal community. So let's play this. We won't hear Mr. Keshe's comments, but they're quite lengthy following this video. We'll go right into the final disclaimer and the session will end. So if you have anything you'd like to say, please address it now. Or I guess you could at the end of this video. I think this is another fairly short video, just a few minutes long, 5 minutes perhaps. But let's hear it. I've only heard it once or twice. Here you go. Thank you, Rick.
Every government carries the responsibility of protecting its people. Healthcare, education, public safety, infrastructure, the environment, the future of the next generation. But every year, these responsibilities grow faster than available public resources. The challenge is no longer only economic, it is structural. When citizens cannot clearly see how public resources become public value, trust begins to disappear. And when governments lack transparent and efficient tools, essential public services become more difficult to deliver. The challenge is not only creating more wealth, it is creating more trust. Now imagine a different possibility. A transparent framework where citizens and governments participate together under law, with accountability, independent auditing, and measurable public benefit. At the center of this proposed framework is Keshe Coin. In this proposed model, each eligible citizen receives an allocation of 1,000 Keshe coins. Each Keshe coin is presented with a fixed internal value of 1,000 euros. The presented total value therefore becomes 1 million euros. Governments and private companies are invited to formally join the Keshe Foundation at keshefoundation.at. 100 coins is given to the government national treasury of the individual participating in registering and accepting the Keshe coin. Citizen allocation remains at 1,000 Keshe coins. In addition, governments can request Keshe Coin for infrastructure and national projects, which will be granted on approval. There is no hidden taxation. It is a transparent public allocation established by law and public agreement. Public value is measured by what citizens receive: healthcare, education, safe infrastructure, scientific research, environmental restoration, technology, opportunity, human dignity. A transparent digital treasury allows citizens to understand how public resources are being used, how much entered, where it was approved, how much was released, who completed the work, and who independently verified the result. Transparency creates confidence. Confidence strengthens society. The future is not built by governments alone. It is not built by citizens alone. It is built when responsibility, technology, law, and trust work together. Participation creates connection. Connection creates cooperation. Through the peace game, people around the world may contribute to a shared digital ecosystem. Verified participation may become eligible to receive Keshe Coin. This is not competition. It is cooperation. It is participation. It is contribution. Participants who actively take part in the global network system will be eligible to receive 30 Keshe Coins each year. The One Nation Network device allows individuals and institutions to participate in expanding the global infrastructure. Verified network operators may become eligible to receive annual Keshe Coin rewards. The network grows because people participate, not because they speculate. Future annual activity income may be taxed according to national law. Every participating country may establish its own fair taxation policy. The objective is fairness, transparency, and sustainable public services. The initial public allocation and annual taxation remain separate. The same income is never counted twice. In participating countries, citizens may be permitted to pay approved public obligations using Keshe Coin. Every transaction is secure, verified, recorded, auditable. Technology supports public administration. It does not replace the rule of law. Governments entering formal agreements may use Keshe Coin within approved international cooperation. Medical equipment, food, technology, scientific services, infrastructure. Digital settlement occurs only after verified delivery. Transparency protects both sides. When disaster strikes, transparent public resources may respond faster. Every emergency allocation should remain traceable, audited, and accountable, helping people when they need it most. When citizens participate, when governments remain transparent, when technology serves humanity, a stronger society begins to emerge. Trust, participation, responsibility, knowledge. A stronger society is not built only by punishment. It is built through opportunity, education, healthcare, community, employment, and hope. When people have access to opportunity, many of the conditions that contribute to crime can begin to decline. The greatest investment any nation can make is education. A knowledgeable society creates a stronger economy, better government, and a more peaceful future. Technology has value only when it improves human life. It should reduce suffering, protect the environment, expand knowledge, and help humanity move forward together. The future belongs to those who protect the planet while building it. Environmental restoration is an investment in future generations. Trust grows when governments remain transparent, when every public project can be verified, when every citizen can see results. The future cannot be built by governments alone. It cannot be built by citizens alone. It is built together. Responsibility, knowledge, trust, cooperation. United under the Keshe Foundation and Keshe Coin, governments and individuals stand mutually accountable, working as one society to build a transparent, peaceful, and sustainable future. Different nations, different cultures, different languages, but one shared future. One nation, one planet, one race. When humanity is finally free to think beyond survival, the human soul may begin to elevate. A peaceful civilization does not only build better cities, it builds better human beings. Knowledge, compassion, responsibility, and wisdom become humanity's greatest achievements. The next great journey of humanity is not only across the earth, it is toward understanding, toward existence, toward creation, toward the infinite universe. When knowledge and peace walk together, humanity can carry not only technology, but consciousness itself into the stars. Keshe Coin, a proposed framework where people and governments may work together to build a transparent, peaceful, scientific, and sustainable future. The future is not something we inherit, it is something we choose to build.
Okay, any comments? There were many comments from Mr. Keshe as he went on for a good 20 minutes after this video was played. So we encourage you to re-listen to that if you haven't heard it or listened to it for the first time. Again, we're just encouraging people and governments to work together. And we won't have so many, hopefully, boondoggles and waste of money. I think if they could just appropriate what they have, there'd be more than enough for everyone. But there seems to be a lot of wasted money, not only in the American government, but governments across the planet. So again, we're all building it. We're all carrying a very small corner of a very large carpet, and we thank you all for your continued participation as we're setting the stage for the next generation to live a much less harsh life. Yes? Any comments from anyone or anything you'd like to share? Please feel free. All right, if not, then thank you all again for being here. Have an amazing rest of your day. We'll play the final disclaimer and the session will come to an end. Again, any other thoughts or comments you'd like to make? Obviously, the souls know what they're doing, and we're all here for a much bigger work in the future. And as Mr. Keshe said, we invite you to stay here with us and continue to expand the knowledge. So maybe some or most of us will be here much longer than we anticipated or thought could be possible as we start to move into a bit of life extension, perhaps. But again, we leave it up to the soul to decide. And we've seen many close knowledge seekers to the foundation their souls have decided to go to another position. And apparently certain people understand why. I don't particularly understand why, but that's fine. We leave it up to the souls to decide. Any other comments before we play the final disclaimer? All right. Again, have an amazing rest of your day. Continue to play the game, expand the knowledge, share more, and it's all coming together. Maybe not as fast as we'd like it, but it's at its pace for a certain reason. But we're going to see many, many more outstanding things come into our view, things that we never thought possible. I think we'll see some beautiful things in the Swiss conference as well, which is coming up in October. So thank you all again for carrying a small piece of a very large carpet. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.